vaccination. So I got an invitation for Tuesday. Then 10 weeks later comes the second. So it should be 3 weeks. Now they changed into 10 weeks to get more people into the first round of vaccinations. So, and I'm 65 now, and we started in January already. So we didn't have much vaccines. We'll get next week much more. So I'll see how that continues. So that's basic what's happening here. So anybody has a subject coming up for barn raising? Glenn is not here, because that's a pity, but he was sharing much. Alex wanted to start. Okay, say.
I just want to know if anybody's been chatting with Jaswinder.
Yeah, I see that coming up on the chat too. Yeah, don't know. I haven't heard from him.
I noticed, I think 2 weeks ago, that he was not active anymore. So he might have been died, or he left Facebook immediately. Unless he speaks again, I think he died, but I don't know when.
He's living in Wolverhampton in the UK. So if I go there on Google and try and find the Sheik community, I might be able to locate him or one of his colleagues and get some answers.
Yeah, well, that depends on his family and us asking if we can reach out to some of his family, but we don't know. So if we know, we can reach out. If we can't reach out, it's different. So it's different with Michael Josefovich, because then at that time I noticed a message in Africa, and then I sent it in USA, and then I was more or less the first to see it. Josefovich died. So, but for Jaswinder, there is no backup, no other people that can verify at the moment. So I don't know. So only presumptions.
I've got a proposal. I've been playing around with the idea of trying to focus or align, which I think is a meme of this group. Some people have, how would you say, evolved or emerged into grown. The group has grown. And it's interesting because people who have something that they want to bring and do are doing it anyway. And so a couple of examples of success have come out of the group, what I would call success or motion. Gertrude put together her book and started an appreciators channel show. And I don't call it a show because it is not broadcast. It is private because it deals with personal issues. I believe she calls it a coaching session. I think it's much more than that, but you know, she has Doug to help her, and it's a very powerful thing for those who would like to take part in that kind of thing. So that's a success. That could grow bigger. That could, you know, that could be her thing. I don't know. I think Michael Jwesifitz was another example of somebody who was actually coming here, participating somewhat, interacting with a lot of the people here, and I think was successful in seeing his vision. Dave Techsmith, he's another one that came here and has a message, who I speak to once in a while. So, you know, it's things like this I take seriously, and hope to see more of. Not that I don't take everybody seriously, but there's a lot of ideation going on, and innovation is 1,000 misses to 1 hit. So everything isn't going to work, obviously. So what stage we're in bringing our message is kind of important for other people to appreciate. Is it at the beginning of our message? We're just learning. We in the middle of our trying to form a message, or have we done a lot of work and we're looking for people to implement it somehow? Those are 3 different conversations with a whole lot of different levels of context to wrap around them. So as an effort to have some type of focus, I think we can wrap a little context around each person's purpose. And I wrote a little poll to try to bring the questions together. You could pick who you are. And it's basically, are you here with a long-term vision, mission, with several projects possibly wrapped around it? Or are you here with little projects here and there, trying to make them work, see what sprouts, changing your project from now and again? Maybe you're here with no project and just like to take part and help other people and just be part of the community, right? So there's different levels of participation, because there is no rule. I did not fill out a job application to get here. I'm not expected to do anything except for maybe, be kind. I think that would be something, maybe collaborate, think globally. I don't know. Doug changed it to be global conversations for him. It's no longer collaboration, or maybe there's collaboration underneath of it. I don't know, but that's just the point. And I think Sam was saying earlier, if we can get past our words to our intentions, that would be great. So if everybody had a 1-sentence intention, then it saves me the time of writing the wrong version first before I put it on the map. Anyway, so I put that out there. I've had a bite from Doug and a bite from Alex, but not from anybody else yet. Not that I couldn't search through the tape and find probably 5 different versions from each person. It's like, are you aware and can you tell me? That would be very impressive for our group, I think, to be that focused. Just an experiment. And then maybe we could find a we, because, people are even arguing if there is a term we. And what does we mean? To Alex, it means a whole lot of things, because I see him projecting on me that I'm not part of the we that he sees. And I don't think that's his fault if that's what he sees. But hey, buddy, that's not the we I see. So what is it we're here for? Thank you.
Anybody reacting to what Colin just said?
This is a experiment, global challenge experiment, and we're here taking part in the experiment. We are guinea pigs, I think. And the thing is, it's like a seed garden. The GCC is like a seed garden. People are throwing seeds in there, and if you're attentive, then you'll notice some of them sprout. Then you're taking notice, you're acknowledging what's happening, and you understand what the GCC is. It's an experiment in sprouting ideas that leave this place and grow on their own merit somewhere else. Over.
I like that. I think that's a valid view. To me, anyway, it aligns with what I'm thinking in a large degree. Incubation.
And you, Colin, for me, I'm difficult, more like Barry. Barry says always, if I hear speaking words, I can't catch it. So you said there is learning, this part 1, or part 2, or 3. What was it? 1 was learning.
Basically,
two is, if you can put it in points, not basically, but
well,
what is
you put
1,
it in your
what is
words.
2, what is 3.
Yeah, you can
but
put
I
it in
don't
your
know.
words.
But
Essentially, what I'm saying is, the way I slice up the pie is, are you here with a vision, a global challenges vision, like Glenn and Sam, who they stated over and over again? And how do we nail that down to how we can, so that's something they have, and I'm part of that. I see that. I also see having several projects wrapped around that focus. Then I see me also having little projects that might have nothing to do with that focus specifically, because I've got a lot of interests. So how do I separate my mapping journeys from my software development, from my, conversations about fair experiments, fair conversations, experiments about fair conversations? Where does that come together? So for me to make that clear for everybody is important. So I'm making these different Because if I'm talking about people adapters or people conversation adapters or talking about journey maps, are those the same thing? Like, I haven't done the work to make myself clear. So I'm here saying I need to help focus my message as well. So what is your message, if at all?
Yeah, and so then I have to re-listen the recording then later. Someone is recording, is that true? Is some recording?
I'll
Can
give you an
see?
example.
Yeah, it's recording.
Tyra last week or week before that said, you know, she's just joined the group and she likes the group. She likes to take part in the group, but she seems to be here for connection mostly. And I'm saying that's a beautiful thing to have in a community. But are we a community? Like, what are we doing? So, and I think Tyra's spontaneous, and, you know, she's an artist and she's a caring, loving person. So why wouldn't she fit in, right? So, you know, that's fine. But looking at me, you might not be able to understand why I'm here so much, or ties. Or some of us may explain why we're here, but other people don't understand. So I think this is fundamental, foundational barn raising discussion. And I think everybody here's brought it up in one flavor or another. I don't know if Ties has. Tees.
Yeah, but I can explain a bit. But the tribal part I will discuss in May, maybe. So I always say synchronization of the planet. So each of us have their own local stories. That's one part. And when I'm here, I hear voices from many parts of the planet. So it's the experience of unifying the planet while knowing some parts are not here. So you see the most of us are living in Western countries who are here at the moment, speaking English also. So there are some constraints in who is inside. And I came in because I like the longer history. And now just recently, just this week, I saw someone talking, starting from 14,000 years ago, and then explaining agriculture and so on. So the whole story. So I was already having a story in my mind, starting from, say, 4,000 BC, how Egypt came to be. And then now I learn also, because Barry says Hammurabi, so I was checking again, seeing Hammurabi. So seeing what happened in, and I say Uruk and so on. So, and I saw how agriculture came into the society. So this is the whole long track record. And now I see what we are in now. But the Netherlands is one part of the expansion of Europe. So you have Portugal, the Netherlands, England. And also found out just now recently that the innovations from the Netherlands were brought to England, because the English took a Dutch leader, made him king, and he brought in Dutch knowledge into UK. And then since then, London became a center also for commerce and so, say, financial things. Amsterdam was the first to have a stock exchange. So it's the long track record of my country that I'm part of, and that's I'm having in my mind when I'm here. Then I'm taking a challenge, and I did not expect Marko Josevic to die, but when I saw his network, I thought, okay, when he died, we see how we keep that group alive. So that is still functioning. Now I'm focusing on Malawi, and then I'm continuing to do that. So now I see they have a vision paper for 2063. So if I'm here, it's seeing you all, but nonetheless, I was able to connect David Middlemiss with Jonas in Malawi. This happened spontaneously because of Alex had a meeting organized, and then both Jonas and David Milmer showed up. So this how you call it, this is just happening. So enabler for these things. I like things to connect. If I see the people with similar interests, I check it out. And I put it in the chat now. Celeste Hadley just said there's a smart people problem with communication, and she explains how that functions. Why smart people are not good in communication. She explains directly that we have the first idea of a person helps us to react too fast, so prejudiced. But that's part of what we are. So it's in the nature. And then what's next? So we're just in a learning phase. I'm here to see the people and connecting. Is this enough for mapping, Colin?
I just wrote down enabler, Dutch historical view, and project in Africa. What country was that in?
Malawi. Malawi. I say it in Dutch. Malawi.
I got it. It sounded weird, but hey, I learned a German word.
Okay, it's in between Rhodesia and Mozambique. And it's
Okay,
up to north, and also say Tanzania's north, and northwest is Zambia.
Well, remember, you're hosting, so you can ask if it's interesting to other people to try to, find a sentence to put them on the map. And I think each project deserves almost another line. So, enabler, Dutch historical view, and project in Malawi. I don't know if those are one thing or three things.
There's three things. So there's the historical part. Here is the learning part, being part of humans that see a value in being here at this moment. So seeing the value, it's part of it, but it's difficult to say it has value. You're just present. That's the whole idea.
Well, thank you.
And maybe others can react on what I've said or ask questions. Alex, yeah.
Colin's not on the list of friends I can send the pictures to when I copy the image from Facebook. And I right click and it says forward this image, and the list of
we have some places where we can join up. I'm sorry if you don't have access to all of my personal accounts.
Well, all these names come up, and a lot of them are in the GCC. Nearly everybody here on screen is there, but not Colin.
Is not where?
When I click on an image and there's a little icon above it, it says forward. So I can forward this to groups, to people, to friends, to members. And the list of names comes up. I tick box, and it'll forward that image to everybody, every box I tick. And the boxes are groups, members, friends, other sites, other pages.
I don't know where you're looking, Alex, but Colin blocked you in Facebook, so you can't check in Facebook. So, but you can put things in the chat that others, then Colin can see it.
Even better. Sam has started a new thing where I think we can focus really well. It's was Trello, but we've moved now to, I guess, I like Trello, but it's all mindfulness. You want to use crayons and an old newspaper. You could use that too, but it's better to use a tool that you can search through and manage and navigate a little bit. So Trello could do that, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. So some people are not able to participate. I think that's a cop-out for anybody in this group. If they can't use an electronic tool that the group has deemed useful, then maybe somebody here could help that person if they want to put the effort in to learn how to use that tool. And if they cannot use that tool, then that may be a barrier to entry. I don't know. Maybe they could pass their information to somebody else. Like, for example, if somebody in the group was blind and they really couldn't type, how would we, facilitate that? Like, is it just that they can't do it or they won't do it? So people who won't do things, they disqualify themselves. So now, if you want, there's a new thing where you can opt in and really excel in getting some conversation going. And that is on the complimentary Zulip account that Sam has managed to get. And I've put about 4 or 5 hours in there in the last 2 days. So a lot of what I'm saying right now is in there. If you want me to be part of alignment with you, then maybe you could put the same effort in there and hope to attract me to it. Because just sending me stuff is nice, but I don't think it's the level of quality that we need to focus and move forward. For banter and stuff, that's great. You can put that stuff on the banter channel. I see it there, right? If you need to send me something personally, best place to get a hold of me is through a GCC project on Zulip or Trello. Thank you.
And Alex, does that function? Can you access the Zulip?
Well, we've got a tool here we're using for communication, and it's Facebook, Messenger groups, and Zoom, where we have face-to-face real-time contact with each other. I don't know what tool you got in mind that would be better than that. I mean, we've got GitHub, we've got
Sam,
Slack.
you asked that question.
Slack.
You asked that question already, and
Stack.
Sam already answered it.
Before we had Zulip, we had GitHub, and the other Slack. There was a Slack account.
Yeah, there was.
And there was
Trello. There was the voting one with what was that?
No, I noticed.
The voting tool you wanted to use. We were on there. I remember arguing with you a whole bunch about MLMs on that tool. Remember that one?
Some
Alex?
of them wanted you to sign up in order to access the advanced features. You had to pay a submission.
Do you remember what tool we were using, Alex, to discuss your project early on when I was assuming it was an MLM? And you said it wasn't.
Tyra.
Hi, Tyra.
I can't remember which tool we were using then. I think it was Facebook.
No, it wasn't. And that's the point. Like, if you're not mentally present in the tool, then you're not actually using the tool. It doesn't matter what it is.
I've got this tool that I'm using to dig a hole. It's called a shovel. I don't want to swap it for a spade or a pick or a hoe because it's quite useful. And this Zoom account is a useful tool for face-to-face communication. Why should I swap it for something other tool? Unless if I'm harvesting gems, I need the additional data, the metadata, and I can collect that with Zello or Zoom or Zulip.
Well, I don't know what your complaint. I don't know what your complaint is, other than you only want to use one tool.
I can record the Zoom session. I've got all the information there, and there's a chat box next to it with links, and I can save that chat box as well. That's a heap of data and information that's overwhelming.
Did you ask me why I'm interested in Zulip or why this even came up?
Yes.
Alex needs to know.
My toolbox is full.
Yeah. Okay. To Alex, so Alex says no Zulip for him. He has enough tools.
I found some tools that are useful, so I'm using them. But my reason for using these tools is not to collect data. It's not to harvest gems. It's not to follow people's ideas. It's to communicate. And what's wrong with Zoom face-to-face communication? That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in communicating. I'm not interested in metadata harvesting tools like Zulip and that. I've got a calendar. I can add Zoom sessions to the calendar so I don't forget things. And there's a list of the people there. I've got all the people that are contacts. if I use a tool like Colin's using on using the Python engine to do meta-analysis, I can do that.
Can you?
Google is good at it.
Colin has
I
his
don't
own
think
ways.
I don't think you could. I don't think you could do what I did, but that's okay. I don't know. Think I
Colin
can do
has
what you
his
do
own
either.
ways.
There's a key on my keyboard called F3. It's a function key called F3. When I press F3, it allows me to search the document I've got on screen to select any particular word I want or phrase.
Right. And there's apples growing in another continent, and you can walk over there and get one. So what I'm saying
Why
is,
Zulip? You can explain
yes,
Zulip,
Zulip.
Colin, because
Well,
Alex says I'm not going to use it at the moment. So, and you says, okay, this is a good tool that I can work with, and I want to have say more in-depth discussions. Maybe that's maybe what you want to say for Zulip, but I don't know. So you can explain already what your vision is that Zulip can deliver, apart from Trello that we just skipped for the moment.
I would love to, but I'd like to survey the room and see if they want this conversation to go any further, because this has already been discussed before.
Okay, I missed it.
It was discussed by Sam, and Sam is basically leading some influence to go to Zulip because of its better way of, having some coherency for people who need coherency. So that's its best offer. It doesn't have everybody in the world there, so it is kind of limited to us, but it is a place where you can organize your thoughts, I think, a little better than you can on a messenger thread. They're terrible to search back. Like, if you just care about the real time and talking now, I need to pick up some bread. Can you come pick me up? Oh, let's go on voice and have a chat. Like, there's lots of tools for that. But if you want to go back and have some memory and follow through, then you need to up your tool a little bit. It's not just as simple as Alex makes it out to be, not in my world.
Well,
So, it's Sam's influence first, because
hang on.
Trello would have been fine enough. Trello would have been good enough for me.
It's a specialized tool for projects, right? We're in a general chat session here. We're not a specialized project.
I said coherence. Projects come out of coherence.
Okay, we are in a project then. There is a project happening here, and it's called the Global Challenge Collaboration.
Not to Doug, it isn't.
Tonight's session is foundation laying, barn raising.
Well, let's say it has nothing to do with the GCC. It is just barn raising, because there's no way to link between this to Doug anymore that I can see. Although some people say people who have triggers doing this can go over there and get fixed.
Well, one person.
I don't see that happening.
One person's got nothing to do with this. This is a group effort.
Well, I think I asked Doug, and he said he thinks the name that you just mentioned is not the name that he's using, and hasn't been the working model for him for a long time. So what do you say about that on Sunday?
That's for him. He's entitled to that. Each of us are entitled to what we think.
But is it still part of the GCC?
You can't force your thoughts onto somebody else. That's bullying.
I didn't say that. I said he's forcing his show under the GCC label. What used to be something else.
He's got his own beliefs about what it is.
And we've all got our own
beliefs of what it is. We've all got our own beliefs about what it is. Okay, we've all got our own description. I gave you my description is different from his, and you've pointed that out. Why did you go to that much trouble to point out that one of the other members has got a different description than my description? We know it's not about no. Half of the course. We all understand it. It's stating the obvious.
A lot of this is stating the obvious. I'll agree with that. And it's when it's conflicting is the issue. When something's emerging away, diverging, you notice it. It's not converging, it's diverging. That's my claim.
That's one person has an opinion of what this is. That's not diverging from anyone else's opinion.
Hold on. You said, all I'm challenging is you use the term GCC, Global Challenges Corporate Collaboration. Doug is not using that. I see you, Tyra. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's why Doug has an issue. He's not using it. I use it because it's descriptive and using descriptive names is a good way to communicate ideas.
And don't fight with me because we're not even having the same conversation, I don't think.
I'm not
No,
fighting.
no.
I'm just saying that thank you for pointing out Doug has a different opinion. I think we all have our own opinions.
And also, Sam has recently on the record stated that his idea has shifted a little bit, but he is still true to the main course, as am I.
Yeah, well, that's it.
And
It's
Tyra
divergent.
has no idea what the main course is. And
Yes.
I'm glad she's here because that's not a problem.
What is a global collaboration? You
Ask
go
Heiner.
first.
Ask Heiner. Heiner's got another really good view.
You go first. You asked me to ask Heiner. Why did you pick somebody who's not here?
No, I'm saying, well, we got weeks, we got months, we got years. What do you got?
Joshua, what is a global collaboration?
This is it.
This is it.
But I'm hearing a lot of I'll just be, I'm half asleep sort of listening, and I'm loving hearing Tice because I don't get to hear him a lot, so it's great to hear it. And I'm loving the energy coming out of Colin's voice because I feel like it's like finding the power of like, okay, here's who's got what I'm mapping, I'm hearing and seeing. But I also think that there needs to be some more feminine energy in terms of what is, okay, so this is what it is, instead of just pointing out the nouns. Now let's get to the verbs. That's the way I understand feminine energy, is more let's move the energy, not just let it stay still. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for asking. Thank you for including me.
So Tyra, time for you to tell us how is life.
I don't think I've had enough coffee yet to really dive into it. Things are good. Happy to be here. Thank you. And sorry I was late. It took me a little while to roll out of bed this morning. So just carry on. I think I've stated many times that what GCC is for me. And I'm totally good with it. Just the way it is.
So I put the question in the chat, what do you think it should be? Because we all have our we all have our opinions on what it is. But so what do you think it should be is a good question, I think. That'll help us get some more metadata.
I would say we are 8 billion humans, but not we, but I am one. So we are with 8 persons at the moment, so here. So if you say, what's the GCC? I can't speak for all the other, say 8 billion. So, and then I think the word is too large as to be able to speak here as with this 8 persons. So
It's beautiful.
if I am focusing on Malawi, I want to know what is the vision of Malawi, and now I found it just this week. So I couldn't get it from Jason, but now I see there is a vision 2063, and now I found it. It's also for the African Union, so they know what they want to reach in 2063. So I see railroads being built by the Chinese, maybe with and maybe it's owned by the Chinese, and maybe they take over whole harbors. So, but they have a vision. So Malawi too. So they don't want to be part of China, maybe. So, but they want to industrialize. They want to continue. So, and then for Jason, I know he has no connection, so he can't see YouTubes. So they need maybe blueprints for making machines because they want to industrialize. So if they are here for free without copyright, they can build machines. So it's a global challenges. This is just a global challenge. So, and then we can be enablers for anything. So And Malawi is landlocked. I'm connected with Bolivia too, which is landlocked. But I know that Switzerland is landlocked, but they are sailing on the oceans with a ship. So, but also they are connected with the River Rhine, with the oceans through the Netherlands. So the oceans were enabler for the Netherlands, for the other countries to expand. And then now it's a problem. We have done so much influence on the other countries. Can they find back their own roots and build from their own roots into economy, into a culture that feels safe for them, and that is for them to say, it's our culture. While Malawi has two official languages, it's indigenous language, but also English. So that's also very special. India too has English, seemingly also as official language. So there is something with the language that also is part of the global challenge. So, and then if Bolivia is not good in speaking English and being landlocked, they are not good in connecting. So this is the global challenge. Can Bolivia be connected in a good way without going into, say, corruption and anything else? So what is needed for Bolivia? So any country has its own thing to do. So what is the challenge? So what are we? Well, we are talking about such issues if I speak, and if I don't speak, it's not an issue. So no problem. But I listen here, so it helps me to give advice to the person that I know in Bolivia, to the person I know in Malawi, or anywhere that I know a person that if I get some information from here, I can see, okay, this is happening anywhere. So now it's Alex who wants to say something.
Yeah, I've been spending time talking to people from Malawi and from Benzali and from about 4 different African states. And they've been asking for funds because they need money. They're not getting it from their government. The government, too much corruption. And mining companies. And what they need the money for is to buy chainsaws. But when they ask for money to buy chainsaws, nobody gives it to them. So they ask for money to plant trees instead. And that way they get some money. Just hope they don't spend it on chainsaws and guns to fight in the local conflicts with their local government. It's corrupt. So they need a place where they can thrash out these arguments and get to the truth of the matter. I hope they take my advice and start local groups online. I've offered them some incentive because once the group grows, it becomes attractive to advertisers who want to spend money putting banner ads on their sites. So if you've got income coming from the website, that can be used as an incentivizer for the local people to buy more seedlings and plant trees and get paid for it. Then that money, they can use that money for whatever they like. If they need to buy more seedlings, that's great. If they want to buy chainsaws to cut trees down, that's not so good. But how do we know what's going on? Alba.
I got info. Jonas shared the local, say in Dutch we say 8 o'clock news. So I was seeing the 8 o'clock news from Malawi, and I saw that people cooking on wood. So where is still the wood? It's in the nature reserves. They make charcoal and they use it for cooking. So there is an issue on wood and cooking, charcoal, so cooking stoves. So there needs to be information to be put into action locally. So it was very nice to see the local news, really seeing how the struggle is. So then the change are needed to cut down all the trees in the natural reserves. And then what should the people do? They need the charcoal to cook. And in terms of corruption, of course, you're right. But if I look to my country, we have 17 million inhabitants, Malawi, 21 million. But it seems that our national income is 1% of the national income of the Netherlands. I'm not sure actually, but it's about 1%. So the 100 euros that I have, it's their €1. So it's very difficult to, and then, so if they have to find an economy locally, of course, it must be possible. If they don't have, say, so the imports-export balance should be okay, then locally the people are there, so they need to organize how everybody is able to get the food, get the cooking materials, get the cooking fuel for free, more or less. I mean, from the nature reserves or anything. So how will they get, so if they plant more trees and the trees grow fast, they might have more cooking wood, if that's still the option. If they can make from the plastic, that's say they have plastic rubbish, they can make fuel out of it, and it can be done in such a way that it doesn't give poisonous smoke and so on, then if this can be shared globally, how to make fuel out of wasted plastic, because I know that if we have plastic put into one bin in the Netherlands, in my town, it's too dirty, so it cannot be taken for reuse. So the best way is to make fuel out of it and to keep it dry and to do something, but then again, you need chemical information, chemical knowledge. So then it's also about education. So education is always key for development. So, and this is always a long track record. So it's nice to have a vision aiming at 2063 and then to see what steps to be taken. So if you go to the material things, directly helping, planting trees, that is helpful. But if I see what someone did in Wisconsin, in America, so to say the Dust Bowl, made it a sort of agriculture area. He's harvesting hazelnuts and so on. So that's planting trees. But in the meantime, he started with harvesting grain in between the trees that he had planted. So that's a vision on to do it, but then as a family in one plot of area. But if you have a city, say, or even if it's 10,000 people, how do they survive? So if there is enough production of food, is the sharing okay? And if the surplus time, which is a result of agriculture, is used in education, learning actually, not education, but learning is more important, then there's so much information that is to be found. So if you are learning and you are in a classroom, then you have a difference. But then Gertrude, I saw that one that was shared by Colin, and then Gertrude says, we have in Germany, and I know this from Sweden too in the Netherlands, so it has been thrown away more or less, but it's Volkshogeschool, Volkshochschule, she said, means that everybody can come and teach. So Alex can come and teach what he knows. Josja can come and teach what he knows. This is the Volkshogeschool. And a child can come and teach what he knows to everybody who is in the Volkshogeschool, which is a new idea, to invite children to come and teach what they know in a Volkshogeschool, which means that it's not an institute where you have the hierarchy, but the people can come in and they can sit in a circle and each one can take turns and tell about information. But if chemistry, so the STEM information, knowledge is low, then it's very difficult to build an economy. Alex wants to react.
No, I noticed some of the tribes in these African nations have a herd of cattle or livestock of some description, and some families have one single cow or one pig or a couple of goats. And the waste from these animals can be put into a digester along with the waste from the humans and the cooking scraps and the cuttings, lawn cuttings and prunings from plants can all go into this digester, which is described in the book. I sent a PDF, I sent them with illustrations, how to build it from simple homemade items. And that can give them fuel that's clean burning and doesn't produce the toxic gases from wood burning stoves. So that's a way to make methane from their own waste, from your own materials. You don't even have to go out and buy any fuel. It's there, and I provide that in the book, and I ask anybody in the group who's got a printernet page or a website to add those links to the Links Plus page so that everybody can get the information and they share it around. If they're not wanting to do that, I can't really push them. The more you push them, the more resistance you get back in some cases. So there needs to be a gentle way of easing it into the dialogue, into the conversation. Over.
It's solution oriented and it meets cultural background. So it needs humans like Jonas or anything on the ground that are able to take that knowledge. So it's interesting. This information is there. So the biogas and so on. I see.
Yeah.
I have connection with someone who's doing biogas in India. I know someone who tried to do it in South Africa but failed because he was not technical in his mind. But he wanted to have biogas in South Africa. So it's also about technology. So actually Malawi has arts, they have STEAM in their thinking. So it's not only STEM, but they have arts or in it. So because their vision 2063 is very recent. So from 2020, which means that they are having arts included. So Tyra is part of the business. So I asked her already to connect with Malawi.
I saw a box, a little wooden box divided into nine sections with timber slats, and in each section was one of those little figurines like the one you make. So that was a box full of little different figurines. That's like a gift set. It caught my eye, and I thought I'd let you know about that.
Could you say something, Tyra?
It had a glass top or plastic top, transparent, to keep the grubby little fingers off. Sorry, go for it, Tyra.
Well, yesterday when I had my little first grader doing her schoolwork, one of the videos that the class watched was ways to reuse plastic. And it was really interesting. And I thought, wow, it's not just about recycling now. Now it's about upcycling. And I thought that was really great. And they gave like 5 examples from around the world of ways to reuse plastic. And I thought that was really encouraging. And it kind of got me thinking as well, like, what could I do with that nasty plastic? So I think that there is a shift among our young people. And again, it came down to the arts. These projects that they showed the children were very creative, very artistic, very, they were fun. It was fun, so that's what really struck me. One example was on the beach. Somebody built a big giant wire frame of a big fish just sitting out on the beach, and then you throw your plastic inside the fish and you can see all the plastic as the fish fills up. And of course it's a great metaphor as well. Let's put the plastic here in this fish rather than in the ocean. So yeah, that was my little nugget yesterday. that I saw.
Okay, could you share this with me? And I need actually for Malawi, I would need text documents because they have no bandwidth. It's too costly to see YouTube films. So they need text. So I can, but if I have the film, the YouTube, then I can find the text documents that are behind it, if possible. So I will
I'll try to find you an example. This example was done through a school curriculum, so it's kind of unique to that program, but I'm sure I could search through and find some examples that might work. Keith, and I'll try to forward at least a few ideas for you, but I love the thought of young children being tasked with ways to reuse their plastic, because then you have ideas we've never seen before. But I'll see what I can do to find it.
Yeah, you can directly connect with Esther in Malawi. Esther is teaching a bunch of children, so she can directly ask children to work with it. While I've asked Jonas this month to make an observation of all the rubbish, say plastic, that is laying around in the area where he lives. So that's month. So then they know all available materials that are wasted and laying idle along the roads. And then they have the material base as data. That's what I asked Jonas. Gather your data. It's your data. Know what's available.
Yeah, the
And
other
then-
thing
And then you
too
can
would,
continue.
yeah, the other question too that I would have in my mind if I were to work with children in another country is, what is your biggest need? And you were just talking about fuel. Fuel was a big need for cooking, and also I don't know what their water situation is like. Typically, from what little I know, it's typically water, fuel, and waste management. Waste management is sometimes, so if they need water in their community, then you could look at it like, what is a way to trap water and use plastic and reuse it, that type of thinking. And like what you said, to burn the plastic. But I'm kind of thinking what children can create to feel valued and to help their community. That's where my mind would go with it.
Okay, Alex now.
I've got an issue with what's happening in civilized countries where we've got what we call cities, cosmopolitan areas built up with lots of businesses and huge populations of people working and traveling around in cabs and trucks and buses and trains and aeroplanes. And it's unsustainable. The fact that it's unsustainable is bad news for Malawi and these African nations that are suffering from poverty and corruption. So I suggest that children could benefit from something like a technology web presence where they have the links, they can communicate and talk to each other about the issues and what they need in their own local communities, who can give it to them, who can help them find other resources where the supplies are available, and the techniques to build these things will help them survive and flourish. See, the issue comes from global populations and resource depletion by vast global corporations that are mining for uranium and iridium and gold and copper and silver and tin and lead and coal and oil and the stuff they need for these Tesla electric car batteries. So
we're all complicit in that, I think.
So there's big issues there. And the only thing I can see that will convince governments to take some notice is if the people get together and unite with online presence, with their own web pages and web documents. It's not hard to make a web document. With Google, it's pretty easy, but it's even easier with Wix or Weebly or Squarespace. I think WordPress is a bit more tricky for newbies, but the others are drag and drop simplicity. So I share that information wherever I get the opportunity, because I think some of them are interested. Not many are, but some are. If one or two, like Sam said, we only need a few people interested in doing something like that, and it begins to expand. And some of these things get so big they reach a tipping point, and they just become a global phenomenon, like Facebook, or TikTok, over.
Yeah, that sounds great, Alex. So then first they need electricity, and then they need computers, and then they need to work with the computers, and then Weebly comes in. So then you are the first person to help them. Once they have electricity and computers.
I'm talking about the ones that have already got solar panels.
Yeah.
There's a technology called Starlink. It was introduced by Elon Musk, and it's a technology that enables mobile communication to phone, handheld devices, internet access, and it's pretty cheap. Well, it's getting cheaper, and that might be a good solution for people in third world countries who can't afford computers, can't afford iPads and PCs. They can afford a $50 phone that'll connect them to the internet. Over.
Yes, that's a new development, and we have to check on that. In the Netherlands, we are enabling more, say the how you call it, the with light. Say we can communicate through light in the cables. So we have the cable still running at a good speed, but it's densely populated. So for Malawi, maybe that Elon Musk is a subject. Cable is very high speed and very good.
Copper cable or fiber optic cable?
Well, maybe the Ethernet, anything. So the highest, the best level. Yeah. So it's maybe even better than the 5G.
Starlink, yes. Starlink's faster than fiber optic.
But the fiber optic, but the fiber optics,
at the speed of light. At the speed of light. Yeah.
Fiber optics will be in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Cables at the speed of light. Cables.
Yeah, we'll keep the fiber speed of light. We won't use.
You can't measure the speed of light. Did you know that?
No, that's another thing. It's detail. But that's a good idea what Elon Musk does. It's good for Australia. Then it's not densely populated. So, but the rural areas. Rural areas in the Netherlands are now better connected than even in the city.
The problems are growing larger, and the issues or the tragedy is growing larger because of the starvation and the disease and the poor education system and the government corruption, local corruption.
A good tip, Alex, seek out those that have solar panels already in your own area, and then connect your computers and know the people who have the computers connected to their own solar panels already in your own area.
Well, that's where Michael Joapovic's idea was a good one, with the Printernet cafe.
Yes, he had a good vision. So we have to see how to continue with that. Then for Tyra, water supply, yes, it's always a waste. I'm a water engineer, actually. So from the TU Delft, I know about water supply and I know about sanitation. So for Alex, I know about biogas. For Tyra, I know about water supply. And the problem with water supply for what is necessary is to have it always under pressure so that it don't get contaminated with unhealthy things. So that's the most cheapest thing to do. I mean, for health, the prevention, the disease prevention is water supply. So you need, but then this is the Western solution. So it's the highly state organized organization for water
Tees,
supply. Yep.
Tees, you're taking little tips and bits from each of us around the room,
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
but
Thank you.
I put a link. I put a link in the chat. It's a PDF document.
Yeah.
If you look at the index page on that document, and it covers all the issues
Thank you.
for
Yeah.
creating resilient, self-sufficient communities.
Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
Oh,
I've seen that one already. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Then
I'll
it
leave it at
depends
that.
on the
I'll leave it
on
at
the
that
time.
because
Yeah.
we're going over and over the same thing over and over. We keep going over and over, and it's in that document. It's all in that document.
Yes,
I
we
mean,
need to go over and over again.
Well,
until
we need to because you haven't read the document.
we need to go over and over until we are able to find the people that
If
will
you'd read the
able
document, we wouldn't be needing to go over and over. We'd just be
until we
sharing
find
the document.
Alex,
until we find the people that are able to take in the knowledge and put it into action. Then we can provide it to them. And until we don't can, yeah, and then Tyra.
Hey, Tees, so what is working there? Is there anything that's working there? Is it just a complete collapse? For example, what are the resources there? Are there any at all in regards to food, shelter? Like what, is there anything that is working that could be built upon?
It depends on your interest in asking Esther. So you have to find it yourself,
Yeah.
because I tried with Jonas, but the communication is difficult. Means we have so much advantage before. So in the Netherlands, we have a complete industry made for pipelines from PVC, for getting all the pipes done for water and so on. So this is industry. Now it's say privatized more or less, but still part of so a province started it. So in a country, you can start building something. So you have to know what's the stepping stones, what are the things that are available. So in a condo, someone is making pots and pans from iron, from metal. So it's a metal worker. So you have to know, but also they have quite recently in near Blantyre, which is to the west of Nakando, they have the university just newly established. Maybe it's just 10 or almost not less than 20-year-old. So they have to really they have the education in their minds, but I have to know them myself what to do. But I don't want to spend too much. I mean, I want to know what's available. Let's see your question too. So I'm not having the solution. I don't know what's the path to go. So it depends on what they say, what you see. But rainwater harvesting is also important. So it's always have to know which steps to take, what is possible. And then Colin wants to talk a long time ago already. So now it's Colin to say. But I see only problems more or less at the moment. So I don't have answers. But I know if you have water supply under pressure, then tap water and to the homes, then it's okay. But I know from Bangladesh, if someone had a well, then first it was for free, then they made it, people had to pay, then it functioned because people, when they were paid, they could see, I'm rich, I have a pump at my own premise, and then they could share with their neighbors, which they did. And then later they found out is arsene in the water, so it was bad. But anyhow, they started with having water from the soil and sharing. Then only it was when it was a paid pump, then it functioned. It was for free. It was broken in a moment, and then people were owning it. They kept it alive, and then many neighbors were able to have advantage. So the local circumstances are so important. So, and then, but there is a river there, so you can take all the water from the river, you put it into the community, and then let it flow out as say sewage water, and then treat it, and then hoping the fish will live on it, and the algae will live on it, and the river will flow on happy afterward. But you lose much water if you make a water supply system. So really have to know how much water is available, how much rain, So it's a very much more, say, data collection. And the will of the people is mainly the main part. That's why in the rural areas now in the Netherlands, some rural areas are better connected to the internet than the cities, because neighbors together said, okay, we want to have high-speed internet. So if the people come together with an issue, they can continue and get into the information, send people out to learn and so on. Colin, what do you want to say?
Yeah, thanks, Tease. I can't imagine, really. Like, I can try, and I've seen documentaries, but I can't imagine day after day of not having the level of quality resources I have at my hands. You know, you could even ask why I'm coming to this group and not going to talk to the university if I got such a great idea. Maybe there's something over there I should be doing. But, you know, but I heard Sapolsky himself say that when he did his multidiscipline analysis of chaos theory, and how there is variability at all levels, and he came up with some modeling to describe some phenomenon. He would go to each journal, respected journal individually, and they would say, this is wonderful, but we don't want to publish it because I don't see why it's has anything to do with us. It only, you know, it's only kind of 1/5 to do with us, you could say, whatever. And so because he was a cross-disciplinary thinker, he ended up publishing in a journal that was a bunch of ex-academic professors that are all in, what do they call it? When they get their position of honor, they're honorary professors at the university, and they keep their office because they're called, what is it, Barry? Must be killing you. An honorary professor, what do you call them? Tenure, I think. Yeah, professor tenure, something like that. So anyway, it's all those guys that are 80 years and older that are going in and writing their philosophical papers. He got published in that one and got cited from one guy in Russia who, I guess they talk almost twice a week, and the communication's a little fuzzy. He doesn't know who wants to adopt who, but it's, I don't know. It's just, this is a top level thinker. Like, come on, right? I shouldn't be surprised nobody knows what my journey trail is or whatever the hell it is. Anyway, because it's cross-disciplinary. So anyway, that's what Heiner was about, this cross-disciplinary lens. And I hear Tease saying about, and also Tyra saying, you know, the first question is, you know, what do you need when you get into that contact situation local on the ground? Because at that point, stereotypes are irrelevant, right? And so you ask the individual, you know, despite what I might think you need, cows and water, what do you really need here, right? And then how do you integrate that with what knowledge you have and share that? And the corruption at the borders of materials moving back and forth, you know, high tariffs. And, you know, I've heard these stories. I'm not going to speak of them because I can't say exactly what I've heard, but, you know, any one of these problems we could spend all our time researching, I'm sure. So it is a wicked problem of humans anthropomorphizing everything. What's in it for me? Tribal mindsets. And I'm glad that I can come here to this space where even if you block somebody because you find them hard to align with and noisy, you can still join with them and share with them gifts and have gifts shared with you, because my personal not being aligned to somebody doesn't mean that I think that person should not be, for example, in the group, right? Or I shouldn't speak to them or something like that. I don't think so black and white like that. And I think that cross-dimensional thinking is necessary, or cross-disciplinary thinking. Forget about the dimensions for now. That's more into the theory of everything, 16 dimensions or something. But there's different levels of capabilities of abstract thinking in this room, and that's fine. But when one starts to overreach their knowledge and starts to preach and they don't know what they're talking about, that should be called out, I think, somewhat. And I think Thais does a beautiful job of mediating this divide of capabilities, because we're all useful if we can just find our flow and stop trying to compete and be smart or guru or whatever the hell. So yeah, I appreciate, Thais, you bring moderating today. I think it's helped quite a bit. And so, you know, when I first wanted to speak, I wrote down some points so I wouldn't forget, because Alex went right after you, and I could see my memory and cognition just fading and fragmenting. And if I can't go back and see the tape of what happened, I may never have that thought back again, right? So it's a very difficult medium to speak within and to be any level of detail, right? And details are necessary for understanding. So if we're just here to play, then, you know, it's all good. We can do that all day. But if we want to actually understand, we have to have a memory of some sort. And Sam really hones in on that within this being an important pillar of memory. And I think that's where I have something to offer. And I keep trying to follow the emergence from before in through its becoming into what it may be. And I say this because, you know, I think this notion of becoming is very important and obvious. And if you don't see it, you have to keep your eye on it. It's the awareness, it's the now, right? What are you doing? So that's kind of what my question is in my poll. Like, what is your now? And how can that be shared with the group in a way we can understand? So, you know, this is the first time, as Joshua says, that Teves really got into some of, you know, what he's doing. And it's very interesting. I'm interested to know if there's some way that we could follow your progress in this journey as you ask questions and get answers, as a example for other people to land on the ground and say, I am willing to be of service to this. How do I be of service to this? I think Tees is a good example of that. And Michael Jewasowitz was a good example of that. I think, you know, I think the successes from our group are examples of that. And not worrying about the definitions in the words so much. Like, let's get past the definitions in the words. It's the most boring conversation, but I guess the most necessary to alignment, right? To take umbrage because somebody doesn't see something the same way you do is pretty selfish, I think, just to be angry about it. You know, you might never agree with them, but to be angry about it is ruining this beautiful space we have here, I think. And there's examples of that at play. So I think at one point, conflict resolution was a big issue here. And I'm thinking, how about conflict avoidance through being more focused about what we would like to do? And I think that has emerged somewhat as Sam has gone into some experiments of having other people host. And I think we're hitting the nail on the head with that. We're individuals trying to align, and any GCC we, in my mind, would be something that would facilitate that, because people are already managing resources and we are dependent upon them. We're dependent upon Sam. And I think Tyra doesn't, she said the reason why she's here, it's fine the way it is. We don't need to change it. That's unless Sam can no longer hold that responsibility. Like, where would it fall? Okay, well, barn raising's gone. Like, next week it's just gone. Like, is that what we want? Because that's what happened to Friday Experiments. Anyway, I'll end there. So we're a group trying to define ourselves, and that's my theme today. And I think if we focus on that with the mindset of landing on the ground and asking what's needed, whatever the discipline, is a good place to start.
Tyra.
Keep one foot on the ground, not too abstract. Thanks.
Tyra wants to talk.
Thanks, Tees. Thanks, Colin, for that. I think if something did change within the group, that the people in this group are clever enough to be able to recognize that if one door closes, another one opens. And the Gertrude's example, she took a spot that was something else and changed it into another thing, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, but did we lose
Um,
something? That's the question.
I don't know. I mean, does it really matter? I mean, it's kind of in the past. So
It did at one time. That's the point.
yeah. You know, can I go off topic for just a second? Because this has sparked something in my mind, you know, as I'm thinking about another country, another situation, but I'm also thinking about America and the amount of immigrant children that are coming in from South America. And, you know, that's a hot button topic in our country. And, you know, we have this new president who's coming at it from a different angle. But my hope is that there'll be some solutions to it within the next 2 years before the next general elections come up. Now, my blocking is what can be done? I mean, if we put our clever caps on and say, okay, let's say we have come up with a solution, what would that look like? You know, I get into this with my mother, who's very conservative, and you know, she doesn't recognize that people all around the world are displaced. There are massive migrations all over the planet. She just is of the opinion that, oh, everybody's just coming to America illegally. So does anybody have any thoughts on a vision for that working? You know, a vision where we are able to help these displaced children. You know, my feeling was, let's try to help problem solve in those countries so that people don't feel like they have to flee their own countries. But yet we can't even, you know, work out our homeless problem here. So I don't want to just put my head in the sand and say, oh, it's just too big of a problem. I can't even come up with an idea. Like, my mind is so overwhelmed by it, I can't even come up with an idea. And maybe we can, just like we did a few minutes ago, tease with Esther's situation, can we just brainstorm and say, hey, this could work without it, you know, just for fun? Anyway, that's my thoughts that came up out of this conversation, was, you know, these large groups of kids. Sorry, that was discombobulated a lot as I communicated it. So hopefully you can make some sense out of it.
Barry?
I've written about this extensively over the last 30 years or so. I once was a key member of a very high functioning technocracy. The highest functioning technocracy on the face of the planet was the domestic telephone network in America 30, 40, 50 years ago. It was high functioning, it was efficient, it worked, and it was extremely inexpensive to gain access to it. Everybody had universal access at costs that were actually below the cost of providing the service. The residential ratepayer in America paid about $15 a month for telephone service. And the telephone network in those days, there was about $1,000 worth of telephone plant behind every telephone. When you picked up the telephone, you were gaining access to your share of the telephone network, which was, your share was worth about $1,000 to have been created. And yet you only paid about $15 a month for it. And that very high functioning technocracy, the government decided was illegal. A high functioning system was deemed against the law, un-American, and they tore it down. And you know, I've never forgiven the government for that.
That'd be the
That was
Ma
so
Bell, right?
traumatic.
That's
That was
Ma
the-
Bell.
It was the Bell system. The name of it was the Bell system. And the key word in the name was system. Bell was just the name of the guy who invented the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell in 1875 invented the first working telephone. And by the way, Thomas Edison made the most important contribution to the telephone, because in Bell's telephone, the mouthpiece, the speaker, the microphone, used a cup of acid, which was terribly impractical. And Thomas Edison figured out a better way to make a microphone that didn't have acid in it. All it had was carbon granules in it, just some ground up coal. And it lasted for 100 years. The carbon button telephone that Edison invented was so functional that it lasted for 100 years before it was finally replaced by a new technology, electret microphone. Now, there are other technocracies in government. I'll tell you 3 of them. NASA is a technocracy. In the 1960s, JFK said, we're going to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade and bring him back alive. And they did not ask Congress to figure out how to do that. They created NASA, which was staffed by technologists, very highly educated systems thinkers, mathematicians, technicians, scientists, engineers, and they figured out how to reach the goal. And they got a man on the moon and they brought him back alive by the end of the decade. That's NASA's technocracy. The National Weather Service is a technocracy. They said, we need to be able to predict storms. And they found people who knew climatology, who had gone to college and got graduate degrees in climate science and meteorology. And they found the best of them and they put them to work in the National Weather Service, and it's a technocracy and it works beautifully. It's a system. They did the same thing with the money supply. They created the Federal Reserve, which is staffed by the most brilliant economists that the nation has. And they figured out how to manage the money supply so that it's maximally stable. It's a technocracy. Our government is also a monopoly, but it is a dysfunctional monopoly. All we need to do is go back to what works. High functioning technocracies staffed by people who know what the hell they're doing, who have the education and the scientific models and the ability to calculate what's going to happen if you make this decision versus that decision and choose the best ethical practices. That's all we need. We had it in a few cases. We could have it again.
All we need for what? All we need for what?
Well, Tyra put in the question, what will we do with children that come to the USA without parents? So then she says, okay, it's a problem. How can we solve it?
Them.
And the answer of Barry is
Educate
create a technocracy. Create a technocracy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Barry, you're saying that something that would be helpful would be to make sure that the children that are interned, which essentially is what they are, receive a quality education.
Yes,
Am I hearing you correctly on that?
absolutely.
Okay, so we could
No reason why
provide,
we should not be afforded the same education as everybody is afforded.
right. So if we gave them access to computers, teachers, the ability to expand their minds and educate them, I like that. That's good
I
stuff.
was very lucky. I grew up in Omaha in the 1950s and 60s, and I had access to pretty decent public education. I went all the way through public school and college and graduate school, and I got a pretty good education that the taxpayers and the ratepayers, the taxpayers paid for my public education all the way through college. And then the ratepayers of the telephone network paid for my graduate education. Your parents paid for my education all the way through my life. And I turned around and I gave back with the knowledge to do network planning for the Bell system and to do other work in the technology sector. And I think I'd like to believe that the taxpayers and ratepayers got a good bargain. And I'm still doing it. You know, I'm 76 years old. I'm still giving away everything that I learned, you know, in 3/4 of a century of being a scholar and a technologist and a scientist and an educator. So yeah, there are solutions. I can't compel the politicians to believe in technology. Some do, some don't. I can't compel the voters to vote for elected officials who believe in technology. Some voted for people who were bright, and some voted for politicians who don't believe in science and engineering and technology and mathematics. I don't know how to solve that problem, except what I do know is the best educated voters, the voters who had the best education, vote for the smartest people who know how to solve problems and how to hire people who know how to solve problems. So I think education is our #1 priority if we want to save our culture, save our civilization, save our planet, and have a future. I'm done.
Yes, Alex, then Colin too, but Colin maybe first. Colin first, and then Alex. Colin?
Yeah, thanks. I second the motion for education. I think it's going to happen naturally or facilitated, one way or the other. People are going to learn. Whether they learn good things or bad things depends on their culture. So, yeah. And I saw a documentary. Can't recall the name of it at the moment, but it was one that Richard Dawkins had done on education. And I think he was going around teaching basic science to some of these private schools who had internet connections and books and all the modern tools. But those kids were completely brainwashed. So there you go. You can't control tribes. You can't say because we know better, you should do what we do. That was colonialism to some degree. And not the nice people like us in this room, but the people as smart as us in this room are very ambitious and wants greed and just goes and takes it. See, that's the thing. What was the quote? It would be nice if the politicians would make the distinction between how to decide and who does the work. And I think Barry was alluding to that. The people who know how to do the stuff should be the ones doing it and part of the decision making as well. And I think technocracy really hits that button well, but it's for a closed system of some sort. And I don't know how many closed systems that technocracy could help. And then when it actually hits big and says, well, it's actually a national philosophy. Do we want to have a Ma Bell or not? Do we want to go to the moon or not? Do we want to have clean water or not? Or am I just going to be the king of Africa and just make it very difficult for people to progress because I don't really, I don't know what the constraints are. And Tyra was asking Tees, what are the constraints? I asked Heiner a long time ago when he did his deep dive with Doug moderating. It was a really cool affair. I wish we would have kept doing those. That was produced. It was a bit professional. It was a glimmer of hope for me. People getting ready. And I asked Heiner, we're kind of in the fishbowl, and a few people had asked questions at the end, a question and answer thing. And my question was, what about the corruption? And I don't think Heiner could answer it officially, but unofficially, he had all kinds of things to say about it. So there's discussions and then there's discussions. There's reality, there's systems, and then there's closed systems. And then there's tribes. And then there's culture. And you can give any one of those tribes and culture all the technology in the world, and they're going to do with it what they feel they should through their worldview. So I say it comes down to education, but awareness and understanding the use of the education, not just education to learn about
Alex.
how to memorize the Quran or whatever it is. It's not, how can I memorize the Quran faster? Is that what I'm going to learn today? How, mnemonic devices for memorizing all those verses? Like, what am I supposed to, what are those children learning, Tyra?
That's not a solution. But now Alex can go.
We do have we have this tool with Wiki, not WikiLeaks, with Wiki pages, Wiki websites, dictionaries, encyclopedias, and billions of pages of information. We can disseminate that. The College of Knowledge is a place where children are taught how to learn. And that is the key ingredient in any child's progression through life. It's not about what to learn or where to learn. It's about how to learn.
The German word I learned.
Tyra first now, maybe. But Tyra is invisible now.
Yeah, Geworfenheit was the word I learned. Geworfenheit. You know that one, Thijs? Tees?
It's too German to me.
Geworfenheit.
It's too German to me.
I know it's pronounced right because I've heard it at many different speeds. Geworfenheit.
Yeah. Phantasmagoria.
It means thrownness. Look up thrownness. THROWNNESS on Wikipedia, and you will find the German word Geworfenheit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is effect of what I'm speaking of today, and where we have to think globally but locally because of Geworfenheit, thrownness.
You can put the word in the chat, maybe. That's easy.
See, we're going through a transition from the old paradigm into the new paradigm with the evolution of the internet. I mean, the old paradigm was here before the internet, when you have government, politics, lobby groups, and political parties lobbying and vying for power in the halls of government. Now that we have the internet, we've had a collapse of institutions, especially educational institutions, and online learning. And this is developing as we speak. Over the great transition period for humanity. Out with the old, in with the new.
Yes,
So
Tyra.
one of the problems is educating the people that it's worth putting money and energy towards educating immigrants. I think education has to start there before we can start with the children, because a lot of people don't want to pay for stuff that doesn't directly relate to their lives, and they feel a separation from. These kids aren't my problem, they're somebody else's problem. So yeah, the educational component for the taxpayers who will have to pay for those programs, I think is another big part of the equation.
Yeah, I can answer now to Colin, because that's also what sort of answer to Tyra. If you know the national policy of your government, so like in Malawi, they have a vision 2063. I'm reading that now. So I'm reading that and I'm taking excerpt of that in small sentences. And then I put that in the chat with Jonas. So I tell him, this is the way to go. So things that I know from Malawi, which is national policy, maybe African policy, I put it in the chat with Jonas. And then knowing that, I know, okay, if I find something on education, I know how to phrase it. And then also in that vision, there is a demand, ask question to the youth. And the youth has been asked to contribute to that vision, that they are asked to build the nation. So, okay, because of course they grew. They are say 7 million 50 years ago, and now they are 21 million. So they grew. They have so much young children there that need to be incorporated in a national system, and everybody needs to have the food and housing and so on. So the youth is asked to contribute to make it real. So the vision is there, but to have the education organized, that's for the youth themselves to organize it. So the vision is there. So if there is no vision, on the national level or on the provincial level, or in your own town or your own community, then you have nothing to start with. So if there's not a consultation, there has been a consultation in Malawi. For the Netherlands, there was a consultation on environment. It was so successful that the Germans asked now a Dutch guy to be a representative for the European Union. So it's one of the ministers of the European Union to take on the environmental issues. And then so we have the consultation on environmental issues in the Netherlands. So if you have a consultation nationwide or in your own community, you have the basics. Then you say, but so in the USA, the culture is different. But so the culture of the River Rhine is different. So we have we are more community, but if you have influx from foreign people, they need to know how we combine. And so I think the culture is very good shared with all the people that come new, but it's difficult for them to be accepted as a worker. So it's still a problem to incorporate the people in a good way in the society. But you have to know what's the vision that you have shared in your own state that with which you can build on. And then technocratic, so well, if you have a technocratic institute, it's easier. But Buddy not refers to, but what I didn't tell earlier, China is, in my opinion, a technocratic led country because they have engineers in the top. I don't know if their present emperor in the top, Communist Party top, so Xi Jinping, if this emperor is a technician, but he has technicians in the government. So they have technocratic, they're steering with 5-year plans and so on. But also they force people very much. So that's not a nice place to be. But if you have a goal setting, which is good embedded within the democracy and freedom of speech, it's a good way to have. Also, the Indonesia was a colony, but it was ruled more or less technocratically. So there was well, I think it's India too. So when the colonists were there, they used the road building. At that time it was a railroad building. That was always part of the whole system. So it's technocratic, but also militaristic. So it's not always kind, I mean. So, but technocratic helps to have rationality in decision making. Democratic, you have to see who is in charge, and if it's the power is through the gun, which Mao says, power is from the how you call it, part of the gun, then it's different. So, sorry, I was diverting, but so other people have to pick up now.
Well, to summarize, because that was kind of long, and I think you're saying that there is on one side the assessment that you can do to try to help a person become aware of what's available, like for example Jonas and the 2063 plan. On the other hand, when you go into a place, there is the constraints of what the local democratic system has. And if they are under a type of I want to say progression, but the word would be evolution from caveman to modern man, supposing that's the way to go. If they're still stuck in the violent era of the Crusades and whatever, because the Muslim religion is 500 years old. Christianity is 2,000 years old. It had time to settle out. I've heard people say that. I don't know if it's true. Become less sharp and blunt, but if you looked at the point that Tease is making is that you have to really respect the local area for where you're concentrating your effort. You can't just think abstractly and think that solution is going to work anywhere. And maybe a mathematical system can be put in, like a car could be put into a farm, and you could put gas in it and that car will run on the farm no matter what farm you put that car on. But where the person gets the gas tomorrow and where they go with that car is not under your control. And to think that it is, I think, is limiting the freedom of the human experiment, because it is all just an absurd experiment of hopefully better. Some people might not be out there looking for better. I seem to be the omen in the group, the one that isn't here looking for fun. So I love fun, but this isn't where I do it. I think that would be irresponsible. Nice if fun happens. I get appreciation and joy out of things that succeed. But I'm kind of with Sam on that one. And I have to be careful not to be a party pooper, right? So if people understand where I'm coming from, maybe they won't take it as if I'm angry, because it's not about being angry. It's about being absurd. And Barry says he has a way that he could stop the absurdity with somehow. And Alex says, I can stop a bit of absurdity. Why don't we do this? And Glenn is saying, it's completely superstructure absurd. Why don't we do this? So that's the one word I have for us on Earth, trying to be Heidegger. How do you say that philosopher's name?
Heidegger,
yes. I got into him a little while back. He's very interesting. Voltaire too, and Spinoza. And try to tell me the difference between them. I'm only going to get 80% on that test. But thrownness is, I think, the absurd gun that shoots us out, the cannon that shoots us out of our mama, the absurd gun, however you want to analogize that. And because you can take a child from any country, any place, and bring them to another place, and they will grow up, all things equal, in the culture of where they've been raised. And if you could clone a kid and grow them up in their original culture, and then one that's opposite, and then have those two, at 20 meet, wouldn't that be funny? You're exactly me. Oh no, I'm not. Yes, you are. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with stuff, and I like to, when it gets complicated, I like to think of an analogy between digital and analog. That might sound like a lot of big words, but it's quite simple. Digital is something that decides at a cutoff if you've gone past a threshold or not. So if you're going from a 1 to a 0, the actual voltage might have been 0.3. But when it got to 0.3, 0.3, 0.1, all of a sudden it switched to a 1. Below 0.3, it's a 0. That's taking an analog signal voltage, turning it into a digital discrete value, and it'll flicker. It won't go smoothly from one to the next. Fuzzy logic does go in between. So discrete logic, 1, 0, fuzzy logic will represent a spectrum. Okay, so we are engaged in that kind of a logic game here with our terms. It means this, or it means that, or it has some nuance to it. So this is an never-ending conversation unless we, I think, focus on what it is that we're trying to bring, and then help each other do that, for better or worse. Instead of finding out reasons to tell the person that they have no right to be a scientist, no right to do this, no right to do that. That's not helpful. Unless we're actually in the graduate studio or graduate, chambers of the Princeton University, and we're trying to, go for a doctorate. And the guy says, look, I just don't think you have what it takes to become a doctor. And I say, well, yeah, I never did study to become a doctor. So, maybe there's some truth to that at that academic level. Maybe I could go take a course and come back next year. But I don't think we should be treating each other like that here. I think we should be treating each other with a lot more like Ties did. He didn't say Jonas can't read that document, forget about him. He says, I'll translate it for him because I can be of service. That's a beautiful thing. That's what we need more of. Facilitation, helping, and then not living in a silo so that we can hopefully avoid mistakes. And then lots of Berry systems for individual things that need to be methodically controlled, like the nuclear arsenal. I hear there's a lot of, what do they call them, broken arrows? Anybody ever heard about a broken arrow? Go search that out. I'll leave with that. Thank you.
And now it's almost the top of the hour. So maybe Yosha wants to say something, and then someone might come in thereafter and asking about moderation or anything. So first Yosha, if he's awake, then we'll see. He's asleep maybe. Yosha Bridge, how can we wake him?
Joshua, can you hear us?
He likes music. Maybe you could sing.
I can't carry a tune.
Doesn't say. Okay, then Yosha doesn't.
Can you sing to Joshua?
Boom,
You look like you
boom,
could
boom,
sing.
boom, chick, boom, boom, chick.
Oh my God. Colin, if you only knew what a horrible singing voice I have. Yeah, you definitely don't want me to sing.
There's a secret to singing well. And it's
Yes,
not
fellas.
the secret to singing well is not try not to sing. Just try to use your voice to project those words in the song to the listener. But if you try to sing, it won't sound very good. If you forget about trying to sing and do it naturally as possible, it'll sound natural. You sing for yourself, don't sing for the audience. Sing as if you're in your bathroom singing and nobody can hear you. And then sing naturally. If you try to sing, no good.
So Samhan, is Sam available? Doesn't react now. Sam really is not available. Well,
By the way, that lyric, Riders on the Storm, that storm is a metaphor for chaos. And the world that we're thrown into is a dysfunctional world, a chaotic world. And people are very familiar with the reality that we're thrown into a dysfunctional and chaotic world. And there are, I would say, maybe 5% of the population who understand the mathematics of chaos. It's a modern branch of mathematics. It was only developed in the 20th century. And one of the things that they discovered is in chaos theory, you ask the question, how do I make chaos intentionally? How do I make chaos on purpose? What's the root of chaos? Suppose I wanted to make chaos. What's the easiest way to make it? Anybody know the answer to that?
Yes.
Light a match.
You You start with buffocation, like Mandelbrot. You start like Mandelbrot did with his chaos theory. You start with buffocation.
With what?
Bifurcation, bifurcation,
Buffocation.
bifurcation, bifurcation,
Splitting.
Bifurcation.
Splitting.
Oh, bifurcation.
bifurcation, yes.
Bifurcation.
Well, the I pronounce it buffocation. You can pronounce it bifurcation if you like, but that's what it is.
You're way too technical, Alex. It's much simpler. They invented the easiest way to make chaos 5,000 years ago. Humans invented the easiest way to make chaos 5,000 years ago. And
I know the answer. Make rules.
Exactly. 100%. Rule-based systems have long been suspected of being the root of chaos. In the 20th century, it was proven rigorously and mathematically and demonstrated with computer simulations and whatnot. If you want to make a chaotic system easy, invent a bunch of rules and obey them.
Yes.
That might work in a closed system, but an open system, it might get beat back down like the rain to the fire.
The trouble is people are involved. Human beings are involved. When you have a system that says if the rule is obeyed, go to A. If the rule is not obeyed, go to B.
And what does B do? What is the consequence?
It's a subroutine. It's a subroutine. There's A is a subroutine and B is a different subroutine, depending on the conditions. Depending on the conditions in the first rule.
In the rule of law, what does the system do if the rule is violated? What's the reaction?
It's a bifurcation.
What does it do?
It
It's
splits.
a consequence.
It splits. It becomes more chaotic by splitting.
There's a good example. The automated
Who knows
car.
the answer to the question? What does the system do if the rule is violated?
Yeah, you're a car driving down the road and you have a choice of whether to end the situation this way or that way. What do you do?
Yeah.
What does the judge do when he determines that you violated the law? What does
You
the
get
judge
a
do?
consequence, a punishment.
They punish you.
Yeah.
They deliver violence. They deliver violence under the color of law. That's
A
what
judge,
makes
but
a violent system.
not all systems are like that, though.
The rule of law
Well-
is the root of violence in the culture.
What do you do if somebody kills somebody?
Ma Bell in the legal system.
You let them out, or leave them in jail, or let them go back out in the community and kill more people.
What does the law do when they judge somebody to be a criminal?
We hope the
Lock 'em
best
up.
they can.
Lock them up.
Lock 'em
Remove
up,
them.
punish them, deliver violence.
Burn
It
them
is a
at the
penal
stake.
system. I'll give you that.
Tie them to a stake
We
in the
have
town
a
square.
violent religion. The core religion of our culture is the police culture, crime and punishment.
Is it getting
Our
less violent,
religion-
though?
Our secular religion is violence.
But is it getting less violent as time goes on?
No.
Have you read the headlines lately?
No.
I don't know. I don't know. But
Go look at last week's headlines.
there has been some data on that.
How many stories last week were headline stories about police killing people in the streets?
That's a bit sensationalizing, but yes, it is a topical.
The police go through training.
Hold on. I just had that discussion. Steven Pinker, I believe, did a book on that, Better Angels Ever Nature, and went through tons of data. Now, you might be able to discredit him. I don't know. Can you?
No, I like him.
Okay. And he was saying that there's not more white cops shooting black people. There's just cops shooting too many people.
Yeah.
So, we could argue all day about, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, it's the cops doing it. Well, yeah, it's humans doing it, but is it less violent? The same guy, I think, also in that book, Better Angels Ever Nature, comes to the conclusion that we are becoming less violent, but nothing is linear. But I think it's quite orders of magnitude.
In the 20th century, do you know how many people died violently in the 20th century? The answer is 200 million people. 2 million people a year on average died violently in the 20th century.
Nothing compared to Genghis Khan.
In the 21st century, it's down to 1.6 million a year.
Is that international
2
conflict?
million a year, now it's 1.6 million a year.
Yeah. And
Is that local conflict? or
no, but I think
domestic?
there's
Worldwide.
when you do a
Worldwide.
scientific study, there's many criteria, right?
But
So
yeah, I
we
want to
could
know
go
if it
into it.
includes conflicts, violent conflicts, or car accidents.
includes wars.
With and without police, for example.
Ira wants to bring some peace in the room.
Yeah, I do. So, but I am going to sign out. It's 10 o'clock, so I've got some plants to get in the ground. And Tees, I'm going to deep dive into what we talked about earlier with the plastic, and I'll try to send you some links, or so I'll send them to Esther. I don't need to send them to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
cheers, everybody. Goodbye. Ciao.
so, hey, some make noise.
Nice.
Hmm.
We can make a 3D printer anti-global conflict resolution service, and we 3D print a badge that says Global Conflict Resolution Service. You are a member, lifelong member, if you've agreed to add 2 friends. Over.
Conflict resolution, right? Okay. I'll buy one of those. I just want to check out as well and say that I'm trying to focus on focusing.
Who is doing the recording? Oh, it's Sam, of course. Yes. Okay. Then
Yeah, I think when the last person leaves the recording, we'll stop because it's in the cloud.
it's just okay. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
if you leave,
So, yes.
Ties, it might be gone. So you
Yeah,
better have
that's what I mean. So what must I do?
yeah, maybe I should
Because
wait too. Maybe I
Who
should.
is host? Who is host? I don't know because I didn't check.
I don't know. Barry knows how to check that.
Just
So
click on security, it'll tell you.
yeah. So yeah. My main, not ask, but offering
We're all
to
co-hosts.
Go ahead, Barry.
Everybody's a co-host.
Okay.
Co-host. Yeah.
So what I attempted to offer today was some of the stuff that I'm trying to do in focusing and moving towards Zulip. And that is because of Sam's influence of trying to focus the group and suggesting something yet again that might be the answer. This has started back, I think, a few months ago, but it has maintained a viable and better option for anybody that wants to try to be understood within this context of this group. I didn't say it was good for everything, Alex, but for this group, I think it's a better context than Facebook chat. You can harvest your work and publish anywhere you want, and that's great and fine. But I do think that for our conversations within this group, we might be able to get a little bit more resolution. I don't want to say conflict, but resolution in ideas. If we can focus a little bit more on actually having those ideas. Now, Glenn has got one he started on the future and possibilities. In the past, we've had one on religion and science. And some of these discussions, I think, take up way too much airspace in the stuff that Tees is geese. Tees is talking about today. Stuff that Tees is talking about today is very important. And I'm glad that he moderated and inspired Tyra and helped her. And hopefully brought some context to us about having your mind not completely abstract, but also the end to end. That's what I learned from MIT Development Lab when I heard, I'm still looking for the original source. If you can help me, Barry, that'd be great. But the MIT Development Lab, where they did a program on CBC about what is innovation and the levels and stages of it and what they've learned from doing innovative projects. The D Lab, Development Lab, I think they do world development projects. In fact, I just checked their page and they just went through another big conclusion, or was that another one? Ideation, maybe. I don't know. There's so many, right? But they stressed that one of the things that gave them more insurance towards a successful project was if they considered the project from end to end and didn't rely on people in between for the thing that's no longer available. And I'm saying we might have that kind of a bottleneck with GCC in relying on other people holding whatever the we is together. That Alex isn't doing it, I'm not doing it, and Tyra thinks that it might just happen if Sam disappears. So if Sam disappears, she thinks that barn raising will come back, and it might, but you know, I'm saying, well, how do we make it more solid now if it's worth having? And it's just a discussion. And I think there's an in-between ground where we don't have to have an administrative thing set up and a manager and all that stuff, but we have a better of a Stacy kind of idea between more of a conscious we volunteering system. And that may require that Doug be willing to use, if he's going to offer his Zoom channel for our purposes, then if we're not done, then he can't just stop it, or we've come up with a way to extend it, like Barry has a connection, right? So we have a pool of resources. Anyway, that conversation's never been had, and I think it's a good sense-making project for our group and our group definition and that Venn diagram that I'm talking about. You know, what is the we? Otherwise, we're just individualized, confused somewhat, and networking, basically just networking, which is fine too.
Short reaction of me, you can moderate this as maybe you can call in what you just said, defining the we. So this you could ask Sam to do a Saturday, and Alex wants to react.
I just saw a picture, a Venn diagram of a circle in the middle, which has got the barn, and surrounded by circles, which are the members of the GCC, and the links go from those surrounding circles into the main centre, where it's called the barn. So those circles with the members of the GCC are micro barns, mini barns, if you like, when they should have a web presence. So they can put on their web presence page, this is my micro barn connected to the GCC macro barn for co-creating, co-visioning global solutions, global challenge solutions, ideas, gems, and different aspects of those ideas. Which ones have value? Which ones should be discredited as woo-woo? And which ones should be adopted as a solid path forward where we can make forward progress and stop being hung up on word definitions and distractions. That's my contribution, which is good for focusing, I think. You know, these glasses are coming out soon. I've got a headset over here, a virtual reality headset. It gives me a control panel that I can see on the glasses, right, while I'm looking at the world. I'm watching the show, I can see this control panel on my glasses. And it's not these ones I'm wearing, but the ones that are coming out soon. And it's a virtual reality environment. You've got a heads-up display, and you can use your finger and move it around like this, so I can see it on the screen and touch the control panel and activate different things, just like using a mouse on a computer or a finger on a touchpad, much the same thing. So that's exciting.
When do we all get one?
when you got the $500, I suppose.
Oh, that's not a group sponsored thing. Okay.
Okay, Colin did the checkout. So Alex has a checkout with his virtual reality $500 headset. So then we can all leave now. And that's Barry has some last words also.
I just want to ask, does anybody recall?
Josh is here.
Josh is here. Yeah. Say first Barry and then Josh.
I just want to ask, does anybody recall the one single most important idea, lesson that I want to leave everybody with as having learned if they didn't already know it today?
Try to be awesome.
Yeah, no,
I had to raise my voice to disclose it. Maybe you can remember it.
the chaos idea.
Where does chaos come from?
Making rules.
Making rules and obeying them, and having punishments as the B case outcome.
If I don't listen to Barry, I've broken a rule, right?
You don't have to listen to me. The thing is, I don't want you to not learn something that's easy to learn in 2 minutes, because it took humankind 4,000 years to figure this out.
Do you have any stories written around this, Barry? I think assume the answer is yes.
I have about 24 articles, all listed on one page. You can read the table of contents and pick any one of them and read them. Each one of them is about a 5-minute read. I've been writing about this for 30 years. This is not this is not arcane secrets. This material has been in the public domain for 3,500 years. What we got in the 20th century was rigorous mathematics to solidify it. But it's been in the literature for 3,500 years.
Now, the new thing we've got is the internet.
Yeah, which is, by the way, protocol-based, not rule-based.
That's a good distinction, but I think context.
But most
Because-
people don't know what it means to have a protocol-based internet. It's too technical, except that it works. And by the way,
Protocol is nothing more than a format agreement.
notice that the machines on the internet, not the humans, the machines do not go to war with each other.
Yeah,
There's
the
lots of
My
transfer,
computer does not go to war with your computer.
There's lots of
Transfer.
collisions. It's just taken care of.
information
So-
transfer protocols
So
Yeah.
Yosha,
like HTTP or FTP.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
peace
we know.
protocol.
we know. Yosha,
I
how is
I was just
life?
going to add on to what Barry was saying, just as my closing. There's a story about an investor who was investing in different corporations, and he said one of the things he always did was go to the basement of the companies that he was investing in and see how they organized their stuff in the basement. And
Mm,
if they organized it really well, more than likely that the stuff that they're saying that they're going to do, or, it's just a good indicator of how do you treat the crap that you don't want. And I just keep thinking about all the artifacts that Sam has created and all the files, all the Excel spreadsheets, all the Google Docs, all the things spread out from Facebook in the groups and in the pages and in all the folders of all the Trello boards of just all the digital artifacts that say either GCC or something related to GCC that were created by people here at Saturday Barn Raising. If we organize that first and then ask the question, what do we want to do? But just organize the old past stuff before we create any future stuff. I think that would be a fun thing just to do on Saturdays is just, dump all the crap out from the basement, take it out, look at it all, stick it back into the basement. Hopefully it's organized, and maybe it's not. Maybe we just shove it all back in there. But that's just an idea I had.
I'd like to dedicate 25% of our effort towards retrospective. Yes.
I just like pulling out crap from the garage and from the basement. That's all I'm trying to say. Does that make sense to everyone? Like
that analogy works black and white, but I can think of edge cases, but I like what you said. I was going to leave it right there and think that we could, clean up our basement a little bit each week.
Yeah, maybe just retitle documents. Maybe just something as simple as that is just go back and retitle them and stick some links into somewhere so it's easier for people. I can't even find the announcements on Facebook now. I think I have to go to the Facebook group, click announcements, scroll down past the pin thing, a couple down, there's the PDF. I click on the PDF opens, and I click on the link. And then I know there's a button right on the page that you could just put link.
But that's not the way the tech support calls usually go. Josh, you're very kind. Yeah,
I'm complete. Thank you guys for a good morning too.
Thanks, Josh. This has been a rotating circular meme, and it would be nice if we could chip away at that somehow. And I think we're becoming more and more aware of how easy it is to become chaotic, whether we make rules or not, because we don't have rules here. It's promising, but at least it's not broken. And Barry's saying if we make some rules, we'll break it. So let's be careful. Let's make protocols. Let's make protocols.
And we broke. I mean, we've made rules and we broke rules. Like, you're not an admin on the Facebook page. Is that correct, Colin?
Yeah. Well, you wanted to make me one, but I said no.
I tried. Yeah. And Tice, are you an admin on the Facebook page? Is anyone here an admin besides Sam and myself? And okay, so that idea of pulling stuff out of the basement, I would have to give everybody the keys to the basement. That's my point, is that we don't have access collectively, everybody, to everything. I think that might be the first start, is just
On Zulip, we're equal.
On which
I
one?
believe. Zulip, the one Sam made, we're equal. And we were equal on Trello too.
Zulip?
Yeah, that's where we're starting to migrate to now. Sam's got a special deal. I like it. I like what works. It's a mental thing, right?
I don't have access to Zulip, so that's not equal for me, at least.
Well, let's invite you in. Stacy just came in yesterday. Alex doesn't want to because it's too much bother, and he has everything he needs, but he may change his mind.
I
It's
guess what I'm
easy.
trying to say is just organizing the keys before you even make the rules of who can go into what room and what building. Is just, does everyone have access, or who's the janitor, who has all the keys?
Well, it is a
And
bit
I
of an
think we-
experiment.
I'm
Yeah,
the
I'm
window
saying-
cleaner.
I
I'm
guess what I'm trying
generally-
to say is nobody knows who's got what. That's all I'm trying to say.
Nobody knows my sorrow.
Joshua,
But
do you know that
I've
Sam
been-
has given notice that he plans to abandon Facebook? Have you seen that?
Yeah,
I
we all
don't-
do.
Yeah, it hasn't been the first to do
A day
that.
or two ago, I don't, not in the last week, he gave notice that he's going to abandon Facebook.
I
Well, I
didn't
gave
hear
notice.
I didn't
Yeah.
hear him declare it, but I've heard him speak about wanting to and getting closer. So I wouldn't be surprised I missed the announcement.
I want to be the last one here.
Well, I announced I was pulling down the website 2.5 years ago, and I never did that.
I noticed I noticed the
And I
map.
pay for it every month. It comes out of my bank account.
That's interesting. That's something else too. Like I'm looking at buying another $5 a month server, and basically for the GCC this time. And yeah, there's no place for me to, request support for an endeavor where I put thousands of dollars of my own time into it. Just pay another $5 and make it useful. So pay another $5. Right?
I hope we turn it into a trust one day. That's all I've been trying to say over the years, is just, if we
Well, that's-
trust each other, let's create an actual trust that goes across nation states and make any assets that were ever created into future generations' property if they become, stewards of that trust. They don't have to have rules, but they get the key. In other words, when we all die, they get the keys, and
So do you
nobody
need-
owns anything.
Do you need another vote for that suggestion?
Well, the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much is that something you want to put effort into, say on Zulip?
I just keep saying it every 3 to 5 months.
Right. Well, why don't we make an article on Zulip? I have the sister article called GCC We.
There is no GCC. We've gone over that. That's the problem.
Mhm.
I'm
Well,
just talking about Saturday
we-
barn
Oh,
raising. I'm
you're
not talking
just
about
away-
We are
GCC.
dependent on some things, and other people are subbing in for the GCC We, whether you do anything about it or not. And you do stuff for it, Josh. So you are part of the GCC We, because I see it as an admin label, what it can be do to help the people here. Doug does something, he records them, holds them, hosts them. Sam records them, hosts them, makes a playlist. But if they go away, it's gone, right? So I'm saying it's a risk for us to invest in this when we really don't have that trust that you're saying. So it might be worth having it in writing so that people like Doug and Sam understand you're serious. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that, Colin. And even just getting a USB, like a thumb drive that has a couple, or some sort of little hard drive, and compress everything and stick it on there.
Everything is also the becoming, as Barry would say. So not
I've
just
noticed,
become.
Barry, when we talk about we a lot, Barry has to go for a wee.
Yeah, I actually have to go pee this whole time. That's why my voice is sounding like I'm like, hold on. I just got out of bed. I got to go pee. So
Okay, you'll be back in a moment.
Sorry to interrupt Josh's checkout, but this is actually a conversation, not a checkout.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I was focusing on calling you to do a moderation in barn racing, calling the GCCV or the VGCC that you want to define a we. So it's
Yeah.
a
Well,
concept. And then you
Sure,
have to
I would hold
know which
Go ahead.
Saturday you will take.
I think moderating is very close to collaborating. They're on a par. So that's
Focusing.
interesting.
Moderating
Yeah.
is hopefully focusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have an agenda yourself. You say, okay, I have 10 topics. around the subject we that I want to clarify, and you can put a question.
What
We'll
I would like to
see.
see is get enough interest and some definition before we have the show, so people can hit the show running instead of spending all our time doing terminology. So I like to do the terminology work in the background.
Okay.
And I said what I said. You know, I went through each person here. I didn't do Barry. I don't think I did T's.
Here today.
And did I do you? I didn't. I did you today, but it's not on the list I'm making. That's on
Okay.
on Zulip. And for Doug, I said kind of glib, but not really. Maybe more Tammy, but it was childhood trauma as a source of, you know. And he says, well, he came back and he took offense to that, although not in a bad way. But he says, you know, I'm as much of about childhood trauma at the GCC as you are about that skeleton hat you wear. I laughed at that. Jack, the skeleton from who is that artist? I can't remember his name. Tim Burton, is it? Yeah. And The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, it's a memory from me and one of my children, and I bought the hat and I like it and I wear it. It's got nothing to do more than that. But so yeah, it's how can we come prepared in a positive mindset instead of in a mindset where we're still arguing about terms, which has got to be the most boring subject to have between arrogant people. You know, it's endlessly stupid. It's what do you
generic set. There's a generic set of terms and conditions that allows the group to cooperate according to the community standards. Their values-based standards.
Yeah, and we should be able to say, you know, pass them around. Like, for example, we did the discipline thing, which was close. And in the discipline survey Sam made, there's like 90 some questions, and we can add our own. And each person goes through and fills it out. And one came for me, do you want to be on camera? A lot of times I don't want to be on camera, and I don't think that should matter. And if anybody has a problem with that, I would like to know why. And maybe that's because their vision of what the GCC is being blocked by me not being on camera. But that doesn't mean my vision of what the GCC is being blocked. So I have to have a good reason for me to change my mind to what is my natural comfort zone for whatever reason. Maybe I'm making a bunch of noise like Kayla, right? And sometimes I am, you know, doing childcare, but I still care enough about this group to tune in. And for someone to tell me that I don't have the right to tune in because I don't have my camera on, I think is short-sighted and quite ignorant, unknowledgeable. If you tell them and they don't understand, then it becomes the matter of stupidity. They're not learning. So I draw a line between ignorance and stupidity.
Yeah, when the family
Yasha first. Alexander, Yasha has his hand up.
when the
Go
family
ahead, Alexander.
has a conference, there's a conference in the lounge room or in the dining room. And the kids who are supposed to be there attending that conference are playing in the kitchen or in the dining room. They're not in the same room. That's why you have your presence. If your presence means having your camera on, then that's what it means. If you don't have your camera on, you're like a kid that's misbehaving and not in the family conference room where you
Tell
should
that
be.
to Sam. Tell that to Heiner. Tell that to Kayla. Tell that to anybody else. Tell that to Josh for 3/4 of this meeting.
I will. Thank you. Over.
And then
I think
Yasha.
you're wrong by my mutual support, but for your point of view, you may be right.
Yasha.
Thank you, Tice. I had a thought and then it went out of my head. And
Let's all
I
meditate.
apologize. It was,
You have to write it
yeah,
down.
I think, what were you talking about right before, Colin? You were talking about the camera thing, about whether you have the
Being
camera
able to
on.
read people's faces and read their emotional state, their nonverbal emotional state.
I was talking about
which
the
is
discipline list,
extremely powerful
was an example.
information if you want to have a functional conversation with somebody.
at Barry's expectations. I listen to many a podcast, and I don't need to see what the guy's looking like. I was talking about the discipline list that Sam had made, and the camera was an example, and how people can't even accept what I feel is my slider, where I set it to where I'm comfortable. It's not acceptable to somebody. And if they're going to come and tell me why I can't be comfortable, they better have a damn good reason. There's no rules here. Like Barry said, you're making a rule, not a protocol. The protocol is to be able to, I think, contribute and be present. The camera does not mean your presence. It might mean your presence to a certain level that Barry's looking for. So if you're going to have a conversation between Alex and Barry, it's probably not going to be just audio. But me and Ties, we talk and chat. And we have wonderful meetings of the mind. I don't have to know. Well, the best thing with Ties I've got to remember is that, it gets late for him and he might need to go to bed. Like, he's 5 hours difference, right? So that's the conscious thing I have to think with Tease. Am I keeping him up? And he's just being kind, right? So that was it, Josh.
So.
Discipline.
Yeah. Discipline. There you go. That's a good one. And I think that's a good thing that we should figure out how we.
Well, I meant behavior, but it came out discipline. Sorry, punitive.
Yeah. Well, the key word of the word discipline. Okay, you meant behavior because I'm about to go into disciple, because that is what discipline is. So we got to serve somebody, and if we don't serve each other, we have to serve ourselves. And I think that's what we have to figure out. That's at some point in time, we're either serving each other to help each other, or we're asking for a need that we have for ourselves. And in that balance of both, diversive or, sorry, I'm just waking up. I should probably sip a cup of coffee. But what I'm really trying to say is everyone keeps asking this question in every conversation I've been having lately is, are we going to have it central or decentralized? And I asked a gentleman that exact question yesterday, and he said it's both. It's polyarchist. And I think that's kind of what we just got to come to a realization. It's not a rule or not a rule. It's both. Sometimes there's a rule depending on who you're talking to, and that's just out of respect for that person of what they would like to be treated. And sometimes they're not there, and that rule's not there. Does that make sense, Colin?
Yes, it does. And I see that as a messy Venn diagram that Barry doesn't like because it's not scientific.
There's no diagram. Just fuck the diagrams. It's just being nice. It's just being a nice person. It's just
okay. Well, you could be a nice person, yes, but that there could be a point on the diagram where
there's no rules. Just being nice. Just be nice.
I think having a good intention, I think, is how you say that. If you and
that's nice my checkout. I'm checking out.
Thank you, Josh.
Checkout. Love you guys. That's my checkout. I just want to check out. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye.
I don't think Josh wants my reply to that, but I did see an interesting thing about being honest and talking to strangers from Malcolm Gladwell, an 8-hour audiobook I just heard. And no, actually, it was Anthony Magnavosco talking with Shannon Q on the Line, I think it was, whatever show she does. And it was about the street epistemology. And she was making a point about this kindness thing. And he says, well, maybe if you don't agree with somebody, you should let them know, so you're not leading them on, right? So sometimes being in conflict is necessary so that you're not being dishonest. So you have to still do that kindly, but at some point coming to a realization that the alignment is not there and you have a misalignment, then you can deal with it one way or another, hopefully maturely. Depends what's at stake. And Sam had a discussion one time about the different stakes and the different contexts. And I think Barry has something as well in his stuff about the different, how does he say it? He's got different areas of industry, not industry. How does he categorize that? It's good for him to hear me try to recall it. It comes down to, I would say, different economies. I think he said different economies, which are basically closed systems that relate to each other. So he has about 8 of them listed. Different sectors, and So it does come down to these different, what's at stake. So in one of these economies, something else is at stake than another, you know, and typically in the world we live in, it all comes down to money in the end. Well, hopefully what value is and how we share will change, not just become commodity based and ripping apart the land like Alex was saying. And so I don't know what is going to make leaders of different countries think about their population in a way that seems to be logical. These are wicked problems, and you touch one thing, you break something else. So how do we touch the right things? And Barry says it's technocracy. I think there's a lot of truth in letting people get out of the way of things that can be better managed. Like one example in the medical field is diagnosis. Medical imaging and diagnosis can be done better. The book I was talking about with Malcolm Gladwell and Strangers, they put a computer up against a judge in deciding who would be the right people to put out on bail and who should not be put out on bail, and different predictions of outcomes of these people's fate based on whatever the judge says or what the computer says. The computer beat the judge. Okay. So we're easily fooled. So there's all kinds of areas in there where it's just not black and white. And it's endlessly.
And Alex wants to say
go ahead.
something.
Thank you, Thijs.
I was going to mention that if you can't say something nice about another person, and this is in reference to people who are not present in the conversation online. So if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Don't say anything, especially don't say anything derogatory. If you're talking about somebody who's not in the conversation, that should be
an example.
That should be a protocol.
It's an individual case basis
that we adopt. Well, it's applied to several people. I'm not going to pick and choose and name anyone.
So I can't talk about Jordan Peterson right now. How famous do they have to be?
If you cannot say something about Jordan and he's not here, don't say anything derogatory. Say nice things about him.
Well, I don't really have anything bad to say about Jordan Peterson at the moment, but when it comes up, I'll let you know.
Uplifting. Yeah. Well, you know, it's important if you've got something derogatory to say about somebody, it's important that that person's present to counteract your accusation.
Not necessarily.
Otherwise, you're in a silo. You know, you're pissing in the wind.
It's not
pissing in the wind.
It's not what I say is going to affect that person.
That's why you're pissing in the wind. If the person's not here.
What I say is me trying to understand. So if I'm talking about Einstein, like he's not here to defend himself anymore. What if I said he was wrong?
I know, but that's what I mean. You're pissing in the wind when the person's not here to respond.
I don't understand what you're talking about, Alex. That person.
If you're saying something derogatory about a person who's not here to respond, you're pissing in the wind.
You're mixing emotions and fact.
If you want to get to the nuts and bolts and gritty issue that they're wrong about, and that's right. A debate to have in the appropriate forum.
Well, for example, how much have I picked apart your idea?
So I want to check out, and you have to sort it out yourself. Alex has a point of view, you have a point of view, and you differ in opinion, and so Alex is
nice as
right, and you are right, and
be as nice as possible. Don't offend anybody unnecessarily. And you know, it seems to me that the humor and the mocking and the sarcasm goes up as the conversation degrades.
But
so how do you manage that is a good question.
I put in Celeste Hadley in the beginning of the chat, so you can see what Celeste Hadley says. She's a very famous interviewer, and she has great ideas, and she says how we react to each other. So yes. How you're Alex and Colin, you come to a different of opinion with your first intuition, and then if you're thinking through, you find a higher level, meta level, and you say, okay,
yeah, that
something is dissimilar, but in the certain ways you're at the ground level you differ, but in the meta level, you might be completely.
Just in generalities, I think, and making rules, bike shedding, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're constructing something constructive if you're digging into somebody else's error, but in some cases you're lighting a fuse.
It's
So
not
if you would
intentional to
say,
light a fuse.
if
not
you would
intentional.
say goodbye to me, I feel free to leave.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'd like to talk to Alex a little more.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm
Um,
done. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a few minutes. Alex, I don't know if you think I have a bad intention, or if you think that I want to provoke, or you think I take joy in it even, because no. There's too many things to do in life, right?
Yeah, but sharing other people's information incorrectly is a no-no.
People make mistakes, and that's why you get corrected. I'm making a statement right now, a claim for each person, and I'm prefacing it by, I would like to have these statements validated because these are my assumptions. I'm not claiming that they're truths. And you looked at one and you said, well, that's not me. And you cleared it up. And I stated back what you said. Now,
Well,
maybe
I saw it published.
I could take that and add that now. Are you going to endorse that sentence now?
You got up me for publishing another forum outside this forum, right? You said this false information was spreading, right?
I'm not spreading false information.
You said I was. No, you've accused me of spreading false information further afield than our own group.
I think we did have a problem one time when Alex Gagnon came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, are you aware that Alex Reed is out there spreading shit about you on the internet? And I said, no, I went to the GCC, there was nothing there. He said, no, he's doing it on his private account.
Why did I start doing that?
I don't know, Alex, because you thought it was a spy? Because you thought it was a spy, maybe?
Well, let me finish. You were publishing things about my project that was pertinently incorrect, and publishing them on a what do you call it, a map.
So what do you do? Do you challenge me on the ideas that I'm asking about, or do you come and attack me and try to knock me off my horse? Which do you do?
Well, would you correct that error or take it down, remove it from the internet because it's incorrect? Or
you point to where I have an error.
How do I correct it? Do I add on to it?
I totally would.
How do I add on to it?
I don't know what you're talking about. I know at one time I thought you had an MLM. Right?
On a wiki document, if somebody writes something false and incorrect, misleading, you can add an annotation.
Yeah.
You can author the document. But your map was there with the incorrect information, and I could not author it. I couldn't.
Well, first of all, that map has not been validated, and that's why I'm not releasing it. I'm just sharing it with people in the group.
You published it with the group. You had it on
in the group, sure, yeah. So we can talk about it.
And you shared the screen.
That's right, and it's not validated. It has no stamp of approval.
Well, I didn't say it was validated. All I said was it was incorrect, and I wanted it corrected.
In fact, Alex, you could be incorrect by when I recorded it. It could have actually been what you meant, and it could have been valid at the time, but you've changed your mind now. So now it's incorrect. So now do I go back and change it again? Like, how often am I responsible for updating what I think you're saying?
Thanks for your contribution.
Not at all.
Thanks for your accurate data reporting.
Yeah, well, it's as accurate as it's current and as it is part of our flow.
I think it's a good idea to deep dive with somebody about their idea before you start publishing your opinion and putting it up on share screens.
I think I was trying to help suss out what you're doing, not explain what you're doing.
Well, it's a funny way to help.
It is a funny way to help. And it's a funny way to accept it too.
Well, I don't accept bullshit.
Well, that's your definition of bullshit, isn't it?
Well, I've got an idea.
An attempt to bring awareness to what people are doing in the group. That's bullshit.
I've got an idea that to unite people into a cohesive system that will grow exponentially like a virus. But it's not a Ponzi scheme because there's no fees.
That's already been put to bed. You've already said that was back on the old. See, I reminded you of that. Now you remember, right? That was the old Trello board that, that Sam suggested we go to, and that died. What was that called?
You wanted to know why Alex was so upset.
Well,
That's
you
it.
don't take criticism well, because you could say, no, it's not. And here's the reasons why it's not. And I'd say,
Well,
oh,
I
isn't that
didn't-
interesting?
I couldn't correct it, and you wouldn't correct it.
Well,
You,
maybe
it was
maybe,
your map.
maybe it
You
is.
didn't.
Maybe
You
it
didn't want to
is.
change your map. You said
All
this
I
is my
said, all I said from map, no, I deleted it off of the map because you didn't want to be represented. So I deleted you off the map, as far as I know, because you asked for it. So I did. You don't
Well, I
want to correct
couldn't-
it. You just want it gone. Fine.
I didn't have access to correct it.
You don't have to access to correct it.
I wanted you.
I'm the one writing the retractions in the New York Post or whatever it is article I wrote.
I wanted you to correct it, and what you
No.
ended up doing-
You said you wanted nothing to do with it. And I
Well,
deleted
that's right, because I couldn't correct it. You wouldn't correct it, and I couldn't correct it. So
Actually,
I said,
you have a
remove it.
point. You do have a point. You do have a
So
point.
anyway, I'm going to sign
point-
out. I'm
point
tired,
about-
and
The
you're
point about
causing
not being
my
able to edit it,
you're causing my
that worked with me.
hormones to. You're causing my cortisol hormones to erupt in the
okay, see you
amygdala.
later, Alex. See you later.
The amygdala is becoming embroiled and having a battle with the other area
Well,
in the brain.
if you don't want to sense make with me, then you don't have to.
I do make sense of it, and I've just explained that if you want to put up a document with bullshit on it and not allow the author who knows the truth.
I did not stop people from editing. In fact, I was looking for group, and in fact, I'm trying again to do another group experiment with
I wanted
now.
to edit the bullshit, and you wouldn't give access to the document. It was on a
I
program called.
think the bullshit was that I was saying your idea is exponential, starts with one person, then goes to two people, then to two more people. And at that time, it looked like what would be to me is an MLM. But you have to do the economy. Like, where's the money going? Where's the value? So I was asking you, the mathematical model to me looks like an MLM. We couldn't get past that part of my discussion. You assumed I was being derogatory to you. No.
I didn't want that word associated with my project.
Well, it doesn't matter what word I use. I never did get a good explanation for what it was to replace it with. And today,
Yeah.
maybe we got a little piece of that, right? Because I said something and you said, no, it's more nuanced than that. And then you wrote another sentence. And if you want me to, I can read it right now, what you said, and you can verify it online and we can see if it makes sense to you. Because I don't mind helping people in this group highlight what it is they're trying to do, whether I agree with it or not. I might tell you where I disagree with it, but who am I to stand in your way? Nobody. Unless it's a bad idea, like selling hell to children. I don't like that idea. I'll stand up and say, don't teach kids about hell. But that's just, I don't see you doing that today. And
So
nobody's doing that.
How
And
do
the
I?
people I mentioned today doing that were the people who had all the education materials and Richard Dawkins' documentary where they were still teaching them about non-science and superstition when they
Well,
had all the scientific tools at hand.
Listen, I'm trying to get a word in.
Go ahead, buddy.
When I want to enable people to develop good things for their local communities, I need space to do that. And you came along and started knocking it. So I got upset.
I never
had
took
a-
your space. I never took your space, buddy. I made my own.
Yes, and you published it in front of the group.
You could correct it. It's just.
I tried to. You wouldn't give me access to the software.
Correct it to what? And yes,
It's
you have a point about correcting it. There
mapping
was a
software.
problem. There was a problem
on,
with
let
editing
me
because
stop.
hold on.
Stop the bullshit. Stop the
Bullshit is
bullshitting.
not bullshit. The bullshit's an explanation. Listen.
Stop this fire, the rapid fire machine gun back and forward.
Okay, I'm sorry if I'm going too far.
I couldn't change the stuff you put on the mapping software because
That's
you
correct.
wouldn't give me access.
That's
You were
incorrect.
the only one who had access,
That's incorrect.
and you shared it with the group.
That's incorrect.
Well, I'm out of here. See you later.
The fact of the matter is it's a technical difficulty to get people on different versions of a map.
I'm not staying here.
And not
listening to
enough
your
and not
crap.
enough people even took part in the experiment to work out that technical detail. And Tammy complained for months about how she couldn't do the map. And I think there was a part where you don't want us editing your map. And I'm saying, no, I do want people to edit the map. I want them to come and make Venn diagrams and share. But we never went through the protocol of getting people onboarded to the map or anything else I've done. So what results do you expect? You know, how do we onboard you to the new Zulip? Well, maybe you're not even going to want to onboard to that. So, you know, but I will read to you if you got one moment.
I've been to 5 or 6 of these groups. Zulip's another one to add to the list.
Don't complain. Just keep
and
working.
they're silos. They're
Don't
silos.
Complain. Don't complain. It's a privilege.
I'm not complaining. I'm describing something like a silo.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is get focused. It's not about being a silo. It's about being able to navigate the conversations, which you can't do on Facebook chat very well.
Well, you're describing my emotional states incorrectly.
I don't know about your emotional state, but I do
off
know.
The top of your head. It's off the top of your head. You're speaking.
Why are we talking about emotional states when we're talking about tools?
Because you several times you've told me that I was emotional.
No, I just said you don't want to take part in it. That's all.
Over. I'm out of here.
If you don't want to take part in it, that's a fact. If you want to tell me why you've tried all these other tools and get into all the reasons, well, you know, whatever. It's like,
look,
if the tool is there, you have been invited. You are privileged to be invited.
You've denied, and you've denied. And
that's not true.
I'm finished.
I think capabilities are mismatched.
I
think Sam had no problem. Joachim Strahl had no problem. Several people had no problem editing my maps. Michael Jawasowitz and me worked on a map about history 6 or 7 years ago.
Look,
in G++,
if they didn't have a problem, they didn't have a problem
right.
editing the map.
I would say
let me finish. Shut up. I wasn't allowed to edit the map. I wasn't allowed. I wasn't given permission.
That was your experience.
I was strictly forbidden from editing that map.
By the software, not by me.
Well, the software was a commercial program.
It was a telephone network of $1,000 given to you, and you just said, "Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, he doesn't want me. He's blocking me," which were all untrue. He's trying to sell me stuff. He's a spy. You know.
No, you're a salesman. You're a salesman.
I have nothing to do with Coggle.
The Coggle software was a program
out of context, and you were not helpful. You were not
for sale. It was for sale, wasn't it?
No. I'm doing a map for a Global Challenges collaboration, and I actually singled you out as somebody who wasn't doing much.
I couldn't edit it.
And I said, would you, this is because when I first came, and I said, well, maybe Alex could, you know, hey, Alex, there's a broom over there. There's a mop. Hey, I got a map. Would you like to help me with the map?
You want to buy it?
I got the same type of thing that happened to.
You want to buy something?
Who was it that reached out to you recently? Stacy. And Stacy, we had a whole thing on that where she reached out to you, and it just was a mismatch. And that's what Malcolm Gladwell was all about. These mismatches. You don't behave the way, or I don't, or you don't, or somebody doesn't behave the way society expects them to.
Stacy's friend.
It was all over hell.
Stacy reached out to a friend of hers who lives in
I'm not trying to block you, Alex. Officially, I'm not blocking you. You're welcome back on the map. You can make any space you want. I know a lot more about Coggle now than I did then.
But I can't use Coggle unless I buy it.
No, that's not true. You can't use the advanced features unless you pay $5 a month like I do.
Well, I can't use the advanced features unless I pay $5 a month, which is $120 a year.
Same thing with the car. You can't drive on the roads unless you pay for the insurance. It's like it's a tool. What's it worth to you? What's it worth to you is the question.
$25 a year or something.
I put an awful lot of value into that for you just to say it's not worth it. And you know, so
it's worth it if it works and I can have some control over the information that pertains.
Well, I'd like to know why you
me.
think it's worth it, because you haven't been bugging me.
I have a project and the information pertains to me and my project. If you're going to put that up on a map that I can't adjust and you won't adjust for me, even after I pointed out that it was incorrect.
That's not true. I went to go correct it and say, look, I'm basically giving you the same stuff I'm giving you now, being open and willing. Technology is our problem between us. It's a mismatch. It's not working in our favor. I'm not perfect, but having all that technology between us isn't helping. And then coming up to the fact that you don't have full access for free is another thing that bothers you, because I know you think that all software should be free. And I think it should be able to be written by voice too, if I'm not mistaken. But let's not get sarcastic.
I never said that. You're putting words in my mouth. All
You
software
say
should
that
be free.
software developers are going to be disappearing because they can write software by voice now. And I'd like to see you write what I just wrote by voice. You're not going to get it.
Google's got the app.
It keeps getting more advanced. And yes, as it becomes more and more magic, you can claim that you wrote it. But no, it's
Well,
not the way it
Google's
works.
got the app. It's called voice to text translation.
Anyway, we're off topic now. And this is kind of like how it goes with Barry. But I appreciate you both. And I think you're valuable members of the group. And I would not want to do one thing to block either one of you towards this group or your ideas. And I will give you as much respect and attention as anybody else in this group. If you don't
I've seen the
realize it or
value.
recognize it, then there's nothing I can do about that.
I've seen the value in the things you bring.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think that's the way it should be. So, you know, we can have personal differences and different worldviews, but that is the coexistence experiment. And I would be a hypocrite if, because I didn't feel I couldn't help you, that you don't belong, or you're not a scientist, or whatever the reason is, that you don't belong here. That's ridiculous.
Anyway, it's
All
getting
right.
late.
Thank you very
Getting
much,
late.
Alex. I think we leave on a good note. That's a good thing. And if you want to do some mapping, that was my intention in the very beginning. But
I'll
you
use
have
the
to have
brain.
patience. You have to have patience. Yes, the brain is nice too, but that's even more expensive. And they will kick you out, I think. I don't know if there's a free. I think they actually do have a free layer now. They didn't before, I don't think. Not a good one. And besides, the brain is more of a database. That restricts me. I want to have a crayon so I can draw wherever. Because
Clubhouse.
when I get to the point where I can categorize this thing, I don't really need a mind map anymore.
Can you incorporate it with Clubhouse?
I see the mind maps I'm doing as breadcrumb trails and wayfind and sense making sessions. You're sense making, you're following your mind, keeping breadcrumb trails. Like if you go into a new operating system and you're writing down a bunch of commands, you've got a history trail. You've got a history trail, right? But wouldn't it be nice to take your project over 3 operating systems and put them together in a little bit of a thought trail so that you can replay? You could write a document. You could do it many ways. I like to use Toggle. Go ahead.
You need yellow brick roads and good art if you want a trail, knowledge trail. It needs humor.
You need knowledge if you want a knowledge trail.
When I say we need, I mean I need, you need, us need humor and good art. Ask Barry.
Well, those are gifts, and let's hope that we have been sprinkled with them. All right, Alex. We'll see you later. See you later, Barry, Sam, everybody. Been a slice.
Save the chat.
Yeah, I am saving it. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Your cortisol level has subsided?
Yeah, it wasn't really elevating, but
Well,
it was ready to say something stupid, and I was going to jump on it, and I didn't want to have that kind of interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I mean, not only did you say that your cortisol level was elevating, I could see it. I could see your demeanor, like wrinkling your forehead. You know that. It's easy to see that. You know, it's hard to see it on other people, but for you, I can see it.
You can see somebody's hearing something that it sounds like that is conflicting with their own emotions.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw what I wrote in the chat while you guys were arguing. Take a look at the last, half a dozen or so things that I wrote.
About Alex's browbeaten.
Yeah. I felt that you were being browbeaten, and your brow looked like it was taking a beating. I mean,
well, that's Colin's got a rapid fire style of debating.
Yeah, I know he did it to me too.
I'm absolutely not in favour of that type of debating. I've got a preference for my preferences for other type of debating.
I don't think he's aware of it. As near as I could tell, while I was documenting my observations of emotional states, I'm pretty sure he was utterly oblivious of it. Even when you said your cortisol level was rising, I don't think it registered. There was no evidence that it registered.
Well, there's a deficit there in the cognitive ability.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are not very observant of nonverbal or even verbal revelations of emotional state. And I think part of the problem with our culture is that we are not raised or educated to disclose cognitive emotive states when it's essential for peacemaking and peacekeeping to do that.
Yeah.
Do you see how
That's
many
why
times I wrote the word peace? I counted 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5. I wrote the word peace, I think half a dozen times.
Yeah. A piece of communication knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, when things start to get, when things are going in the direction of unpeace, one thing to do is say, peace, peace, peace.
There's a style of meditating when you introduce a word while you're in that state of the brainwave activity changes
Right.
frequency when you get into deeper into the meditation. That's the moment when you can introduce a word,
Right.
call it a key word,
Right.
and then
This is
later in a situation in life when there's stress elevating and a conflict, you can use that word to bring you back to peace.
Right. This is where Heiner was complaining, was it Friday? I guess it was yesterday, about trying to communicate and the words not landing, the message not arriving at the other end. And this is what I observed here, is that people were talking at each other, and there was, it was like this instead of like this. This is what I saw.
Yeah,
What I
yeah.
would like to have seen that.
Yeah,
I wanted to see
Well,
that, but I saw that.
I didn't want
Right.
I didn't want at the time, right at the moment, in the heat of the event, I didn't want Colin to have his way with his bullying tactic.
Yeah, but what you've got now is a record. You have a record that's going to be public when Sam makes this public, and then you have a witness, and the witness was taking notes.
Yep. Okay, Barry,
Sleep well.
I'll have a good sleep. I'll probably do a bit of searching on Facebook before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
See what's been going on. Okay.
Take care. Be well. And if Sam is paying attention, we're going to close now. I don't think I can stop the recording, can I? I don't believe I can.
It'll stop automatically when you turn off. Sam will leave it going, but he'll have a dead at the end of when you switch off, he'll have a blank space on the recording of nothing happening, and he'll have to delete that.
Yeah, okay. So let's both of us disconnect.